Runner goes. Pitch cut on a miss. The throw to second. Right on the money and in time. Strike him out. Throw him out. Double play. Man, the Cardinals are controlling the running game. Driven towards center. That's well hit. Green going back. That ball will carry to the fence. 1 run scores. Here comes Herrera. They're going to wave him around. Walker launches a double to the wall. Ground ball to second. The peg to the plate. High and late. Mason Wynn beats the throw to the plate.
Every at-bat, there's real competition every pitch, and it's tough on the opposition. We've done a really nice job of not giving away too many at-bats. You're going to give away at-bats from time to time. Man, every year I want to give away less and less at-bats. I think as a club we're doing that much better. We're not giving a whole lot away.
That audio courtesy of FanDuel Sports Midwest alongside Alex and T-Bone on BK. Cardinals just keep answering any of the questions that we might have about them. I think it was fair to have some questions about Sonny Gray and the home run problem that he has had so far this year. Well, last night, coming off of his worst start of the season, a start that he considered to be one of the 3 worst of his major league career, he goes out there, throws 6 innings, 3 hits allowed, 10 strikeouts, just 1 walk against one of the best lineups in baseball so far this season. He made them, for the most part, look silly. And frankly, the Cardinals made them look like a non-contender last night. The Tigers were booting the ball all around. They did not look like some great pitching staff that they have been for most of the season. The Cardinals starting pitching with Sonny Gray made them look ridiculous at the plate for most of the day. And the Tigers tried to play a little hardball with them. They decided to go with an opener. They bring out a lefty because the Cardinals have Nootbaar, Wynn, and Donovan at the top of their lineup. So you get 2 lefties at the top of your lineup. Okay, cool. We'll go about this a different way. Somewhat unique, right? Well, A.J. Hinch had that completely backfire on him. The Cardinals started out the game with a double, single, single. By the time Wilson Contreras comes up to the plate, they have already scored a run, and that is when their actual starting pitcher for the Tigers enters the game. Alex, we've had a lot of questions about this team, whether it's coming into the season or even right now. Every time that we ask them, though, the Cardinals find ways to answer them in the affirmative. They answer them with something positive right now. I'm running out of questions to ask about where this team is and what they could ultimately become.
Yeah, peek behind the curtain, before we do our show and our show prep meeting, BK always throws it out there to the 3 of us, like, biggest takeaway from last night. Guys, it's at the point now where I don't know what else to say. There's no other big takeaways that I can have from games because everything about this Cardinals team is the same night after night after night. And if they lose like they did in the 3rd game in the Royal Series, I'm like, yeah, they'll win the next one. It's what it's come down to now for the Cardinals. So for me specifically last night, I was focused in on this pitching because if there is one more question mark, it's okay, how sustainable is this starting pitching staff? And you're not going to find out in one series against the Tigers. Frankly, I don't think you're going to have any answers until you get to probably late June, early July in terms of longevity of the season. But if you like the Cardinals offense, and we all do right now, the Tigers offense has been better. They've been slugging the ball better. They've hit more home runs. They got a better OPS. And Sonny Gray, the guy that we were saying he's got a home run problem, he just carved up that Tigers lineup for 10 strikeouts. And I'll give you the specific one for me that was like, okay, I'm done. I'm done questioning anything. He gave up a leadoff double. I think it was either the 3rd or the 4th inning. And the Cardinals had a 2-run lead, 3-run lead. And at the point, I'm thinking, all right, this is where Sonny Gray is going to have to work through the magic. Gets a ground out and then 2 strikeouts in terms of the batters chasing the ball from away.
Oh, you're thinking of the 3rd inning. They're up 1-0. They had a ground out to start out the inning, but then it was the double as the second guy up is Dingler. And then you have a strikeout to finish up the inning.
He just carved through him. And at that point, it's like, all right, I don't have any questions anymore on this guy either. So you can throw the questions out as much as you want, and I know there are a lot of people that still don't believe in this Cardinals team. Man, at this point right now, every question you have, they're answering, and this team is they're just good from top to bottom.
Yeah, I mean, Gray last night was excellent. Great bounce-back game for him. I was worried about the home run ball because of the Tigers and their slugging capabilities, and he just carved them up. Like that. They are the best team in the American League. They are going to be a contender this year, and Sonny Gray just mowed through them. Like, if that was a playoff game, that is an excellent start right there for you from your number one starter. And then for me on the offense, I mean, you mentioned the Tigers. We're going to go to an opener. We're going to go to a lefty. And Nootbaar and Wynn and Donovan said, okay, well, hold my beer. We're just going to get on base. And then you've got to go to your starter, and your opener was a complete failure. Like, their offense continues to amaze me as to what they are capable of doing. Everybody is hitting right now. Even Jordan Walker looks more comfortable, and he got kind of a, what I would call a garbage time, quote-unquote, at-bat last night. Dude, he still took a hell of an at-bat and drilled a ball into dead center field. They look just like a complete team, which I did not see coming into this season.
So one of the things they're doing is they're not just beating teams right now. They're beating the ever-living hell out of them. I mean, you look at that game last night. That wasn't close. So much so that you're able to put in, like, the bottom of your bullpen, John King, Gordon Graceffo, they come in, and it's just total low-leverage situation for them. Like, you can go ahead and rest all of your high-leverage guys against one of the best teams in baseball because you're up by, like, 100 runs by the end of that game, by the final couple of innings. And this has been a theme for them, which was the opposite of what we saw a year ago. The Cardinals so far this year, in their, 48 games that they have played, basically a third of them have been decided by the Cardinals winning by 5 or more runs. They have 13 such wins so far this year. 5+ runs, they are on the winning side of things. The last time that they had this many wins by 5 or more runs was 2000 at this point in the season. Before that, 1985. Before that, 1901. The Cardinals have more wins at this point of the season by 5 or more runs than they have had in any other season in the past 125 years of Cardinals baseball. Like, what they're doing right now is crushing the opposition. And last year, think about how many games, especially early, were like, man, they're finding a way to win. But every time they win, it's by like a run. And every time they lose, it feels like it's by 7. Because it's like it's the A or the B squad, right? You either put in your best relievers or it's the B squad, and you are going to lose by 12 because those guys just can't hold the game close. Right now, you don't even have to go to the A squad every night because you're up by so much. That is the trickle-down effect of what they've been able to do with these big wins and the starters getting deeper into games. Like, it all has this trickle-down effect, and it's been really quite pleasing to watch, honestly. Like, just as a fan of watching quality baseball, they pick it really well defensively. They pitch really well with their starting staff. Their starting staff is getting deep into games. And, dude, they just take quality at-bats. Even when it doesn't go their way, they hit a line drive right at somebody. The process is pretty damn good. I have almost nothing to complain about right now.
Yeah. I mean, there really is not in terms of that offense and just piling it on teams. You know what it feels like? It feels like teams try and stay competitive with them until the Cardinals at least kind of open the floodgates, and then the team's just like, all right, this one's done for. And that's how exhausting it feels like other teams look at going against the Cardinals' batting order from top to bottom. Like, what Kevin Gossman said last year of like, man, this is just an exhausting batting order to go through. That's what it feels like teams are feeling right now for the Cardinals, because there's no area to breathe. Because even when you get to 6, 7, 8, you're still talking. I mean, I know we're going to get into it next with Nolan Arenado batting there, but you're still talking about guys like Pedro Pajes, who hits a home run last night, or Jordan Walker, who's starting to at least get a little bit more impactful for you. And then at the bottom of the order, you're dealing with Victor Scott, and then good luck getting through the 1 through 5 again. It's an exhausting lineup to go through. I didn't expect to say that, but right now, I'm not sure what pitching staff's plans are against this Cardinals team.
314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service tax line to get involved in the show. YouTube chat is available for you guys as well. YouTube.com/101ESPN-STL. From the 618, fellas, it's time to start talking about it. How many All-Stars could this team have this year? I mean, you look at it right now, and you think about who is capable of that. Mason Wynn could be. Brendan Donovan could be. Wilson Contreras, depending on how things continue to go from here, could be. Ivan Herrera could be. Victor Scott could be. I don't think he will be, but he's at least potentially in play for that.
I mean, can I say something wild on the pitching side?
Matthew Liberatore?
Liberatore could be.
Yeah.
Helsley's going to have the name recognition to do it.
He might too.
Well, he might
just
be
the numbers.
deserving of it. I would be shocked if he actually gets in, but he's at least deserving of it. Yeah, I mean, you're talking about how many will they get? Probably like 3 or 4, potentially. Yeah. Which would be a hell of a lot more than they've had in recent seasons for the most part. But, I how many could they have? I mean, you could talk about 6 or 7 different guys that would be deserving of that opportunity, even though obviously they will not all get it.
Yeah, and like some of those guys, to your point there, of like they'll probably end up with 3 or 4 because baseball has the stupid rule of every team has an all-star.
I like that rule. I'm in favor of it.
Can you name an all-star on the Rockies?
No, but Ezekiel
Okay.
Tovar might end up getting it.
No.
And like, listen,
No.
I like that they did that because as a child of a really bad baseball team, I wanted to see my
His
team
opinion is
represented at the
skewed.
All-Star game.
Isn't that a pity celebration though?
Correct. Yes, it is. But I felt
you
as
like
though I was
participation trophies.
represented on the team
get to
because
talk to
my
your-
team got somebody there.
You talk to your St. Louis buddies and be like, "Yeah, man, my guy got an All-Star vote." Be like, "Cool."
Dude, that
mine
was
had 5.
Correct. Yes, that is
Yeah, but
exactly what I
mine's there.
did. That is exactly what
Hope
I
you
was
enjoy
doing.
your
And then
.215
the Royals,
batting
by like
average.
2015, everybody was mad because they had the entire diamond was their guys except for second base, where Omar and Fonte
That
was like
was
getting
wild.
DFA'd.
You enjoyed your .215 batting
Anyways,
average
enough
for your
of them
All-Star
for right now. The Cardinals could have basically something like that. The Cardinals, if things continue in this direction, could basically do what the Royals did. I think it was 2016, if I'm not mistaken, when they like the entire diamond was just Royals that were voted in.
Yeah, only St. Louis votes him in though, right? Like, come on, Busch Stadium, let's go.
Really?
Yeah, come on, aren't you ready to buy in?
Oh, I bought in. I just think it's funny when you
if
say
it wasn't,
Come
on, Busch Stadium.
If the weather hadn't come
Yeah.
and you had the issues in St. Louis, I think
Correct.
you would have seen better numbers. I'll be curious to see what they look like in, I think, 2 weeks when their next homestand comes up.
I'll be curious Friday. I think
Hopefully
school's
things look
done this
better.
week. Friday gets a little bit more opened
There's
up. It's
just
the
so
weekend.
much happening right now. Like even if you weren't personally affected by the tornado, whether you're donating your time, which is an amazing thing to do, and kudos to all of you doing it right now, or you have somebody you know that's been affected and you're and you're trying to help them out. Like this week is not when I'm going to be willing or able to judge. I'm with you guys. That June 6th series against the Dodgers, that weekend series, that's when we can really start to look at, all right, where is this team at with its fan base? Are people starting to buy in? Because there at that point would be no real excuses, explanations, whatever you want to call it. Going up against a prime team in the Dodgers, they have a ton of star power that's coming to town. If the Cardinals continue to play well, that's no longer something that you can point to. At that point, it would just be like, either you are or you're not in on the team. And that's fine either way, but I think that would be telling for us. That's really the time when I'm willing to start judging it. This is not the series, unfortunately, where we can, given what the backdrop is to all of this here in St. Louis. He's Alex, that's T-Bone, I'm BK. It's BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. Eggplant emoji says, no surprise BK supports participation trophies. I do.
I know.
I think kids should get participation trophies, and I think every team should have an all-star represented at the all-star game. I truly believe both of those things.
I ate
And you
breakfast
can
this
call me
morning, I'd
soft
throw
for that,
up.
and that's fine. But that is my personal opinion on the matter. I hope Luka gets a trophy in everything that he does in life, and he will be deserving of all of those things. All right, coming up next, the Cardinals made the necessary move with Nolan Arenado, and it sounds like it could be good for everybody involved. We'll talk about that next here on BK and Ferrario. As you can probably imagine, the text line not exactly thrilled with my everybody should get trophies opinion that we just shared on the show. We'll get into that more on the Dad Pod whenever we record the first episode of that. 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line to get involved in the show. All right, Alex, so the Cardinals made a big move yesterday, and it was in the lineup. It went really under the radar. It happened without a whole lot of fanfare. Cardinals decided to move Nolan Arenado down to the 6th slot. They just bumped up Wilson Contreras and Ivan Herrera. If you're just looking at production, this was an obvious move. Those guys have just flat out been better than Nolan Arenado this season, and really it was just a deference to a veteran that has spent most of his career batting cleanup. It's the only reason he was still batting there, because otherwise, average on base slug, there was nothing to suggest production-wise he should be batting cleanup for the Cardinals when Contreras and Herrera have been so much better. I did find the explanation to be interesting, though. So Ollie Marmol told reporters yesterday prior to the game that he and Arenado had conversations in Kansas City as the Cardinals faced the Royals for that 3-game series. Ollie said he, quote, didn't feel like he needed to make the lineup switch, but the timeline is TBD, and through conversations with Arenado, he knew switch was possible. So they decided to do it. I found the comments that were most interesting to be from Nolan Arenado. He said the following, and this is from both Derek Gould and John Denton, who sent these out yesterday. Quote, I think it's more about the guys that are playing well getting more at-bats right now. I don't really have an answer. I just have to play better. Play more the way that I think I'm capable of, but it's been a minute since I felt like I could play the way that I know I should. I don't know if it's coming back or not. I believe that all is not lost. I don't know. I just feel like I've been in a rut for a little bit now, for a few years now. So I don't know what to tell you. I don't have the answers. Arenado got off to a really good start to the season, and since then, he has struggled mightily. Since the first 15 games, he's slugging just .305, and he's homered just 2 times in his past 28 games. Alex, what did you make of their decision to move Nolan Arenado down and his response to that based on his public comments?
I like the fact that they moved him down. I think it's a move that the Cardinals weren't willing to do over the last couple of years, and now you see them recognizing the fact that, hey, we've got hitters that deserve to get more at-bats, and even Arenado said the same thing. So I'm glad they made that move, and it's a trend in the right direction for the Cardinals. The bigger takeaway for me was that one sentence where he said, I don't know if it's coming back or not. To me, when I read that, I thought, all right, so Nolan Arenado is coming to terms with the fact that his career might be headed the opposite direction. And it sucks to say, because I was hopeful that for Nolan Arenado, he could have some type of comeback season this year compared to what last year was. But, I mean, just that entire paragraph that you just read, BK, it sounds like a guy who is understanding where he is at. They have a new hitting coach. He works his tail off in terms of trying to get this thing righted. But at some point, there's just not much you can do. You have to adapt to who you are. And hearing him, it sounds like he has adapted to that. He's adapted to the fact that, hey, the former Nolan Arenado, who was a 30-plus home run bomb type of guy who always hit in the 4 spot, it's not here anymore. So now, who do you become? Do you become a guy who can contribute from the 6 hole? Because Ollie's explanation is right. Like, you can let the guy breathe a little bit while he's working for some of the stuff. Rather than every single day in the lineup, you come in to the ballpark, you're in the 4 hole. Meanwhile, Ivan freaking Herrera, who's hitting 1,400 OPS, is batting 5 or 6.
Yep.
Like, that's got to be a lot of pressure for Nolan Arenado to come through. So I applaud him for having this mindset and being okay with it, but it does suck to hear that for a guy like Nolan Arenado, it sounds like he's starting to come to terms with, hey, my career might be going the other direction.
Somebody in the text line, Doug's Tariff said the move was Arenado's ideas. I can't speak. The move was Arenado's idea, not Ollie's. I think it seems a little unclear as to exactly how this move was decided. I think that there were conversations that took place. I wasn't in the room with Ollie. We'll talk about that. We're going down to the game later on this afternoon. We'll ask Ollie about this to try to get a little bit more insight into exactly how this came to be. But whether it was Ollie's idea or Arenado's idea, Arenado was open to it. And that's what's important here. Because I think there have been times in the past. In fact, we know there have been times in the past where Arenado has basically said, like, I'm a cleanup hitter. That is my role. That is where I hit. That is what I do. That is how I'm comfortable. And for him to be open to this, regardless of if it was him taking it to Ollie or vice versa, doesn't really much matter. It's just about, was he okay with it? And he clearly is. And I'm with you, Alex. Like, it seems to indicate to me he understands where he's at this point in his career. He's not the same guy anymore. We can all see it. The numbers suggest it. He understands it. And I think that's a positive for everybody involved. If Arenado understands, at this point in my career, I'm just not going to slug the way that I once did. And nothing about anything, underlying numbers or the actual numbers, suggests that that's coming back anytime soon. Maybe it will, but right now, sure doesn't look that way. He can still contribute to a winning club, though. Like, this can still be, despite the salary is bloated compared to what you're getting. But if you just told me, hey, Nolan Arenado is going to be a Gold Glove caliber defensive third baseman, which he has been so far this year, he's been excellent over there, and he can hit like 270 for you this season with a decent on-base percentage, but not a whole lot of pop. Cool. Yeah. Plug him in by 6 or 7 hole and win accordingly.
Look no further than what Steen did. Like, when we had the conversation with Steen on the Last Minute Blues podcast, we talked with him about that season, and he said, I just understood that there was the guy that I was formerly was not who I could be now. And the conversations that I had with the coaching staff was, how can I adapt to help the team? That was the biggest priority. 2 or 3 years ago, if this was the Nolan Arenado, and I know he was better at that time, but if this was that Nolan Arenado, I'm not sure he's doing this. I'm not sure if the Cardinals are approaching him to do this. But hearing him talk, it sounds like Nolan Arenado's like, look, I understand that right now I'm not the same guy, and maybe I can still get back to that. Now you get the opportunity to breathe a little bit, but now I can contribute and do in the 6th hole what a Pedro Pajes is doing, what a Jordan Walker is doing, because if I can come through with a couple of big hits in timely fashion and still provide you Gold Glove defense, this team can win.
Yeah, he can still be a valuable piece, and I 100% agree with that because of what you said. He can still be a guy that gives you Gold Glove level defense, and though he doesn't hit for power, he's still got incredible bat-to-ball skills. Like, he just does not strike out. He's still got an incredible eye. It's just the power is diminished for him. But you can have guys like that, and if he's sitting in the 6th spot, maybe there is less pressure, or if you want to call it pressure, or maybe you've already capitalized on a couple of runs that have come across if you get to that spot in the order. Look, whoever's decision it was, whether it was a Ali Arenado, it was a group decision. And sure. I think it was the right decision to move him down to the 6th spot because you're right, he's clearly not a cleanup hitter anymore at this point in his career. It was probably a conversation that if this continued for another week or two, the coaching staff, if it wasn't brought up by Arenado, was going to have to address the situation. But I think it was smart. Wait and see. Talk to Nolan Arenado, communicate with him, which they have done, and he's the one that's open-minded to it. I do agree with you guys. I think it is him kind of starting to accept the not that I'm not the same guy, but also accepting the fact that I need to do what's best for the team, and what's best for the team is for me to be hitting 6th, and that's my best way to contribute.
We also got this from the text line from the 314. Guys, Busch Stadium has absolutely crushed Nolan Arenado's slugging percentage. I just looked this up because I was curious. It does feel that way. Like, hey, Busch Stadium, not a great place for dead pull hitters, especially if on the right side. His OPS by year at home over the last 3 seasons, 785, 795, 815 this year. On the road, 765, 650, 570. It's road stuff that's gone wrong for him. Like, his home splits are basically what he had been previously, a little lower, but it's in line with what you would say is like a normal range of outcomes for Arenado. It's what he's done on the road, especially over the past 2 years, that is absolutely killing him. And I can't explain that because the Cardinals play in some road ballparks most of the time in this division that are hitter-friendly. Yeah. So it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense other than he's just not the same guy. At this point in his career, he's not going to hit for the same power. He doesn't hit with the same exit velo. And, like, he was always somebody that the stuff that he did early in his career was what most players have to do at the end of their careers. They're hanging on by a thread. He's always been a dead pull hitter in the air. That's how he had his success. That's where his slugging came from. He just, hey, left field line, that is where Arenado's power comes from. He's very different in that regard to, like, a Wilson Contreras, Paul Goldschmidt, Ivan Herrera. Those guys are all field hitters. Arenado never has been, never will be. And when you already have gone to that, it's like the last trick that you have in your hat as a veteran. He doesn't really have anywhere else to turn. It's just, okay, can I get back to it? Can I find a way to access that power to my pull side again? And I think the answer might just be no. So he's going to hit for average. He's going to get on base a little bit, going to play great defense, but he's not going to be that same power hitter. And if that is the case, this is the necessary decision that the Cardinals had to make. So I'm glad they made it. I did not think it was coming this soon. I thought it would be probably another month before they made a move like this. But I think this and other decisions that they've made speak to they're starting to believe as well internally that this can be a good club. Because you don't make this move unless you think you're a good club, right? Unless you decide we're a good club, and Arenado is open to it. Those two things are both prerequisites to making a decision like this. So credit to him, credit to the team. This is going to allow them to potentially win more bowl games over the next 3 to 4 weeks. All right, coming up in 15 minutes, we'll get into questions and answers. Jeremy Rutherford, our Blues insider, joins us next here on BK and Ferrario.
Tanner Hendrickson here with a Sports Center update driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. Cardinals blow out the Detroit Tigers last night by a score of 11-4. They'll be back in action tonight. 6:45 will be first pitch. Eric Fetty will be on the mound for St. Louis. Tyreek Skubal will be on the mound for Detroit. This Sports Update is driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. CMLauto.com. Chevy, together we drive. Are you kidding me?
Alongside Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. It's BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN, going out to the Callier and Thompson hotline as we do each and every Tuesday here on the show. To be joined by Jeremy Rutherford. You can find his great work over at The Athletic, and you can all find him on Twitter, as always, at JP Rutherford. JR, while he was on the line with T-Bone during our break, Alex asked him what I thought was a really interesting question. Bigger surprise, the finish to the season from the Blues or the start to the season for the Cardinals? I'm curious, JR, how would you answer that?
Gosh, having been around every day of that Blues season leading up to the Four Nations break, I'd almost have to go with the Blues, just not as close to the Cardinals situation, but obviously listening to you guys leading up to the season and knowing that, they had a lot of challenges, and even though they had some players in place, it was going to take a couple years for the Cardinals, I think, to come together. I think the Blues situation to me is more surprising. And the one common denominator I will add in both of these situations is don't tell professional athletes they can't do it, right? Don't tell the Blues they can't make the playoffs, and don't tell the Cardinals they can't be competitive.
Alex, where would you lean?
I think mine would be the Blues, too.
Really?
And it's not just because I didn't think the Cardinals pitching staff was able to do this or their offense was able to be this good. But the Blues were unable to win 3 in a row all season, and then they not just only rattled off 3 in a row, they won 12 in a row against some really tough opponents.
Man, I think for most fans, the bigger surprise has been the Cardinals. And the reason why is, people left this team for dead, dude. They hated this team. At least with the Blues, there were some people that, hey, Army's super aggressive. He goes out and makes these offer sheets. He switches out the coach. He goes out and trades for Cam Fowler. There was action that spoke to the fan base about how much the organization believed in the team. Mm-hmm. The Cardinals did the opposite of that. The Cardinals sat on their hands all winter and basically made 0 moves up until signing Phil Maton, which this is not to diminish Phil Maton, but it a super exciting or sexy signing that the Cardinals made this past offseason. So I think I would probably lean with the Cardinals on this.
I think to add on to the surprise, I guess, for fans for the Blues was also you have to take into consideration the final month of the season. They didn't have Colton Parayko and still found a way to make the playoffs. Point. And, I mean, there was a lot of people that were on the same tune as you of this is not going to happen. You just lost Parayko. And they still the crazy part is both, I think, are way more surprising than anybody expected, which is why, JR, I think a lot of people are excited in St. Louis now for once or for the first time in a few years is because both teams are outperforming what the expectations were.
Since pre-COVID, probably.
Yeah, and I think I'm headed down to Busch Stadium tomorrow for a game, and I didn't anticipate doing that a couple weeks ago. So I think that kind of shows how the tune has changed a little bit.
All right, JR, let's get into this, talking about the Blues. We are now to the final 4 of the NHL. 4 teams remain as we get closer and closer to the Stanley Cup Finals. Stars, Oilers, Panthers, Hurricanes. For you, when you look big picture-wise at the NHL, trends, anything like that from the playoffs, what can we learn from how teams were successful this year in the postseason?
Yeah, I think it's the same thing that we always look at. I think it's the depth up the middle, the production that you get up the middle, and the goaltending. And also, I think when you look at these teams, you look at teams that have been building the past couple of years to get to this point. Obviously, Florida's been there, done that. Edmonton has taken some licks, but they've been pushing. And obviously, Dallas has just made a series of great moves the past couple years to put themselves finally in this position. And then look at Carolina. I mean, they've been one of the best teams in the league over the past, 6 or 7 years, and just haven't found a way to punch their way this far. So I think that's kind of what I take away. Now, if you're talking specifically, rosters, I think that you have to spend the money. You have to make some good deals like a lot of these teams have made. Look what Florida, how things changed so much when they brought in Matthew Tkachuk and some of the things Jim Nill has done in Dallas. But I don't know, which this is always the conversation this time of the year, what can the Blues do to mimic what these teams are doing? I think it takes some time. I think everything I just mentioned about how long it took these teams to get to this position, it's going to take the Blues some time and some more continued good moves by Doug Armstrong and his staff.
Well, and that's kind of the one that I wonder is the bold moves, because with the exception of Edmonton making the opposite of a bold move, a dumb move by not doing the offer sheets, they're still sitting in a chance to go to a Stanley Cup final. But the other three teams, JR, have all made bold moves over the last few years. Is that something that you think could become part of the copycat league that we've seen with the NHL moving forward?
Yeah, I suppose, and obviously Doug has done that for sure, right? He might be leading at the leaderboard on that in terms of the bold moves. And those are the things like Holloway and Broberg that I think just take time. I mean, you could be talking about the Blues being in a Cup final in 3 years and those two being two of your best players, and people looking at the Blues saying, look at the bold moves that they made to get there. So I definitely think that's a situation. The thing with bold moves becoming a trend is it's just difficult. Like, a lot of things have to fall in place. Carolina, they bring in Rantanen, they move Rantanen, like things that you don't expect to happen for some of these teams, and I think that GMs kind of can't go into off seasons orchestrating those types of moves. They have to be sensible, do what they feel they're capable of doing with the money they're spending and the players they're moving to bring in players, and just hope that it all works out. But you're right. Those three of those teams at least have made some really big moves to get to where they're at.
Jeremy Rutherford is our guest here on 101 ESPN. JR, in the second round, kind of going back to that, the Maple Leafs find a way to lose once again in Game 7, and they just absolutely imploded. 6-1 loss against the Florida Panthers a few nights ago. I'm curious because two of their best players, two of their highest paid players are now unrestricted free agents, and both John Tavares and Mitch Marner, who's the number one guy this year on the market. Do you think Mitch Marner, or John Tavares for that matter, their performance in this year's playoffs will impact their market going into the offseason?
I think that it should, especially with Marner, but I don't think it will. And I think that's because at the end of the day, they're still both phenomenal players. They are going to be the cream of the crop, especially, again, Marner, when free agency comes about. And I think that whether there's 2 teams or 6 teams, Mitch Marner is going to make $13, $14 million a year, regardless of the mistakes he made in the postseason or not living up to expectations there in Toronto for the past couple of years. And look, I saw the same probably social media posts you guys did on several of Mitch Marner's shifts, and how that grit just isn't there, that playoff determination and trying to play the way you have to play in the postseason. It's not just him. I realize he's got teammates around him that didn't get it done either. But gosh, it's just a tough pill to swallow, thinking that some team out there is going to pay $14 million. And then you see some of the highlights that you did in the series and realize that's what you could get from that $14 million player when you get to the postseason. So I don't think it's going to have a dramatic impact on how much they make come free agency time.
I think, JR, with the exception of if Edmonton wins the Stanley Cup final this year, the other three teams could really argue that depth wins over star power in the NHL. Do you think that's the way teams are still modeling the way that they shape playoff rosters, is depth? Because I know Florida, people will look at it and say, well, they got Tkachuk and Reinhart and Barkov, but it was Marchand and Lundell on the third line that outscored the top players in this previous series.
Right, and I think it's a good point. But I think, Florida has not only depth, but they do have some star power with those top guys. Then you look at Dallas. Rantanen, again, they've got a ton of depth there in Dallas, but they've got that star power. So I just feel like those elite level teams somehow have a way to have both of them. And listen, I realize that the 2019 Blues were more of a depth team for sure, like the poster child for depth and not star power. But what happens when you have those guys who can make the plays at the top end of your lineup, like an O'Reilly did, and some of those guys, those other guys like a Marchand can be an accent piece like a Pat Maroon, on your third line on your 2019 team. It just seems like those guys on the third line find a way to help when it matters the most, because they've got the experience, they've been there a little bit, and then they just pounce on the moment, and then all of a sudden you're looking at a team who, oh my gosh, he's got Barkov and now they got Marchand doing this. So it just seems that's the way everything seems to unfold when you get to Stanley Cup playoff time.
JR, we'll get you out of here on this. Is there a matchup that you're rooting for to see in the Stanley Cup final, whether it be narrative based or just what you want to see on the ice for a 7-game series?
Yeah, I would really like to see Dallas and Florida. And that's not to take anything away from Carolina. They're very deserving. They play a great game. I know people have been calling it boring. We had an article at The Athletic yesterday, getting reaction from Carolina being called boring. They play the right way and they play hard. So, they're very deserving to be in the Stanley Cup final. I just think to watch Dallas, who I think has a real chance to win this, go up against the defending Stanley Cup champs in Florida, and love to watch those guys play too. I think that would be an unbelievable series.
JR, appreciate the time as always, man. We'll be reading your great work over at The Athletic, and we'll be talking with you again next week here on BK and Ferrario.
All righty. Sounds good. Thanks.
See you, Jeremy. That's Jeremy Rutherford joining us as he does each and every Tuesday on the show. Appreciate his time as always. If you missed any of our conversation, check it out on the podcast page, 101ESPN.com, or the free 101 ESPN app. That is always sponsored by
Schaefer Door Company.
Coming up in 15 minutes, there are 2 concerns that an ESPN writer posed for the St. Louis Cardinals and why he's not believing in their hot start. We'll tell you what those are coming up in about 15 minutes. Questions and answers is next here on BK and Ferrario. 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line for questions and answers. If you guys have any questions, go ahead and get them in right now on the Air Comfort Service text line, and we will try to answer them here on BK and Ferrario. From the 314, guys, when are you going to have Jim Bowden on to hate about the Cardinals' recent winning ways? We'll probably have him on at some point soon.
It's been pretty quiet lately. I haven't heard a whole lot of Cardinals doom and gloom from Jim.
Just a little inside baseball. We try to reach out to guys nationally whenever they write about the Cardinals because, frankly, a lot of them don't pay attention to the Cardinals day to day. I don't blame them. There's other storylines that they're chasing out there. So when you reach out to a national analyst, a lot of the time they'll be like, hey, listen, I haven't watched a lot of the Cardinals. What are you guys looking for? So for Bowden, if he writes something about the Cardinals and we find it to be inflammatory or interesting, we'll reach out. That's typically the way we go about it. But soon, probably soon.
At some point, he'll have to write about it.
Yeah, at some point, he's going to have to acknowledge if the streak is real or not.
Yeah, I will go out on a limb and say Jim. Actually, I don't.
Doesn't believe this Cardinals team. That's what
he believes in the
I think
Cardinals.
he thinks they could be a playoff.
No
chance.
What?
They didn't do anything in the offseason.
No.
He was critical of them for that.
He knows.
He believes. I bet you what he'll say. This is my prediction on what Jim Bowden will say on these airwaves.
You're getting a bullpen armor at the deadline. You're going to like it.
No, he will say they are trading Ryan Helsley. They are trading Eric Fetty, and they will try to trade Nolan Arenado. That's what he will say on these airwaves. Almost guaranteed.
I 100% endorse that.
Yep. All right, 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service X line from the 314. Guys, would you agree that the Cardinals haven't had this kind of edge or swagger since Yachty and Pujols were in their prime? Seems like a team others would love to hate. I think that 2022 team had some pretty good swagger to it. And now, Albert was seemingly in his prime by the end of that season. But if we're talking like you have to go back to 2011, I would disagree with that. I do think that 22 team had some swagger. 2015 was different. They had pitching swagger that year, and they were really good situationally as hitters. But between 2015 and 2022, they had moments where they would have swagger, like that 17-game winning streak in 2021, I think it was. They had swagger during that stretch. In the playoffs, when they went to the NLCS, that series against the Braves, they certainly had some swagger.
I think 2013 had swagger.
Yeah, for sure.
Beltran, you had Yachty still 30 years old.
Definitely.
Alan Craig was still a part of that team, and then your pitching staff. I mean, you had a 26-year-old Lance Lynn.
Yeah, I'm talking like 2015 to 2021. That stretch, they didn't have the same kind of an edge to them. I think this year's team has that, though. I do agree with that. At least they have thus far. We'll see if it continues.
Yeah, I would agree with that. 22 did, but I would almost call it more of a, like, I don't even know if this is really a thing, but like a professional swagger. Like Goldie was
confidence.
Yeah, Goldie really good. Arenado really good. Showed confidence. Albert was like doing his thing because he was hitting for like 700 bombs. It wasn't, and I don't even know how I would describe this team's confidence. And I don't think like it just feels different. It doesn't feel like the veteran kind of buttoned up. Hey, yeah, we're just doing our thing. It's, we're just doing the fundamentals. This team's like willing to tell you, like, yeah, we're fun, man. Yeah, jump aboard this train because we're good and we're having some fun.
All right, from the 636, take away your bias. Which team would you like to see win the Super Bowl this year? For me, it's easy. I would like to see the Bills do it.
Yep, that's mine.
I don't want Josh Allen to go down as the guy that never was able to win the big game. I think that would be a total misremembrance of what he was. Like, he's been great against the Chiefs in the playoffs. They just can't get stops. So I would like to see the Bills eventually get one. And if not the Chiefs, then I might as well see the Bills do it.
Yeah, I think I probably would say Bills, too. I don't know if there's really anybody else because, like, I enjoy watching Josh Allen play. Lamar, Baltimore, maybe, but I don't. That one I'm not as all of
Washington. I think would be cool. Jaden Daniels winning one this early in his career sets himself up to. When you win early, it changes everything about the discussion around you.
I think that would be the only team from the NFC I'd like to see win it.
Detroit would be fun.
Oh,
okay,
Detroit.
yeah. Forgot about Detroit. Those would be the two.
Yeah, Detroit would be fun. I think the story. I don't think this team has any chance of doing it. I think the story of Baker winning in Tampa would be really cool. Baker was totally cast aside. Was really sent away by Cleveland, goes to the Rams, has that weird 1 week where he's great, but then otherwise was like the backup quarterback for them, goes out to Carolina, was terrible with Carolina, and then resurrects his career with the Bucks. I think that would be a really cool story. But other than that, yeah, that's probably the teams in the NFC, Washington, Detroit, and Tampa, that I would find to be pretty interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd
Might
agree
be
with that.
Washington, Detroit.
314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line for questions and answers. Guys, should the Cardinals be set up for a long-term plan if Jordan Walker does not end up working out? I think they kind of have their backup plan in place. Their backup plan, in my opinion, is just Donovan goes to the outfield.
Yeah.
You have Newt, Scott, Donovan. So JC is your second baseman. We'll see what happens if and when JJ Weatherholt is ready to go within the next couple of seasons, and boom, you're off and running.
And if you don't like that one, then Burleson goes to the outfield. And I know you take a setback defensively, but that's how you keep both Burleson and Herrera in the lineup while Contreras is there.
Yeah, and Burley, though, not as good defense. I mean, they did go to Walker last night as a defense replacement.
It's not a liability, though.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I was going to say. He's like slightly above average, I would say, in a corner. The other thing, too, the other path, if you'd say you didn't want to do like Burleson in the outfield to your point because of the defense, or maybe you say, hey, Donovan's had elbow issues in the past. We really don't want to move him out to the outfield, so let's keep him at second. You could either A, maybe have JC start taking fly balls in the outfield, or B, you could just go to the market. You don't even have to sign like Kyle Tucker, who'll be the best name out there. You can go out there and find a stopgap guy to help play the outfield and hopefully be like league average for you offensively.
That's the good thing about this card, because like, when Tavares passed away, the Cardinals were chasing their tail at that point because they just didn't have anything else that they could do. And so that's when you go down the Hayward path and then the Dexter Fowler path, and it just kind of turned into that. They're not in that position now where they don't have anything that they can use in the outfield. That's the utility pieces that they have that can play multiple positions.
Next thing up here from the 618. Guys, hypothetically speaking, if the Blues wanted to go after Brady Tkachuk, what do you think it would take? What would the Blues have to send Ottawa in return? Start here. Don't think it's happening.
Yeah.
Let's use that as the baseline of our discussion here. But since it was asked on the text line, here's the thing. I do think it's worth noting Brady's not his brother. And that doesn't mean that Brady's a bad player, but Brady's a different kind of player than his brother is. I think what they would ask for is heaven and earth. They'd probably ask you for Jordan Kyrou as the starting point because he has that long-term deal, and that allows them to just hold on to a star in Ottawa, which is not something that is always easy for them to be able to do. So you start with Kyrou, and then you probably add in like one or two young players and a draft pick. That'd be my guess.
Yeah.
And I don't think that I would do it. I think it would be tough for me to go through with that.
In that scenario, I would. I think it's going to be more than that. I mean, you look at where Ottawa was last year in terms of goals scored in the league. They were 242, which was like 20th in the NHL. Like, they're giving up a guy who scored 30 goals and plays a big, heavy game on your top line. So you're going to want to replace that on one of the wings. And then you look at the areas that they're weak in. They're weak on defense, and they're weak at the winger position. So
what if Kyrou, Neighbors, and a first? I'm not sure I'm doing that from the Blues' perspective. I know that sounds absurd because Brady Tkachuk is a really good hockey player, but Jordan Kyrou is also a really good hockey player. If you just look at the production, they weren't all that dissimilar this year. They're stylistically very different, but Kyrou has been a more productive player than Brady for most of their careers.
Yeah.
Again, I understand they're different, and Brady, A, is from here, and so that's going to add some...
Yeah, I'm not completely.
And B, the physicality is just completely different.
I'm not completely closing the door on that deal if that's what it is, because I do think even though Brady is not his brother, he's still a difference maker in my opinion when he's on the ice. It's a lot to give up though, so you truly have to believe in your depth that you think you're developing the proper guys to fill, because what you're doing is you're replacing Brady Tkachuk with Jordan Kyrou, essentially. Like, you're getting a little bit more goals from Kyrou, but Tkachuk plays a different brand of hockey. How are you replacing the style that Jake Neighbors brings you? That's the question you have to ask.
For the Blues?
Yeah.
I mean, you replace it with Brady Tkachuk.
But I think you're replacing Kyrou with Tkachuk because you're bringing in the offense. Like, Neighbors isn't a 30-goal scorer.
But you also replace the physical style with Brady.
Yeah, but I mean, either way, you're giving up something on one side of it, and so you're going to be shorter on the wings, but... Got Snuggerud, you've got Bolduc, you've got Holloway, you've got some guys in your system that you're pretty excited about. So, I mean, I still don't think that's enough. I think you're going to have to throw in probably a defenseman and multiple picks if you're going to get it done, because Ottawa's not going to just give him up.
I think that's a pretty close deal, because I think that would make me really... That would really make me think if I'm the Blues. Would you do that, T-Bone?
Neighbors, Kyrou, and a first for Tkachuk? I probably would, just to bring someone that has a little bit more grit. And I like Kyrou. I really do.
Sure.
Like, Tkachuk's probably one of the very few players that I would trade him for.
I don't think there's a wrong answer to that.
But I I like to your question of like then okay, so I use Kachuk as kind of a balance of replacing the physicality of Neighbors, then the part of the goal production of Jordan Cairo. I believe in their depth to where they can replace Neighbors, or they can just go out to the market again. And you can always get a third line winger.
I don't know, man, because then you would have to get a third line winger and a third line center or a second line center. I don't think it's as like cut and dried as some would make it out to be. I do think there's at least a conversation to be had on if that would be the right call or not. I don't think it's an easy decision necessarily. All right, he's Alex. That's T-Bone on BK. It's BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. In 15 minutes, we'll play a game of Bet It or Forget It. 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line to get your ideas in for that. Coming up next, there were two concerns that ESPN.com writer David Schoenfeld had when he listed why he's selling on the Cardinals' start to the season. We'll tell you what those are and whether or not we think they are fair next year on 101 ESPN. Alongside Alex and T-Bone on BK, 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line. So earlier today, Alex, I was reading over on ESPN.com. I like David Schoenfeld. I think he does a really good job for them. And he wrote a piece on the early season teams that are surprising to people. So the A's are one. Another is the Giants. The Tigers, who the Cardinals are facing off against right now, they were on this list. Giants as well. So some teams that are having some early season surprise performances. And for the Cardinals, he went into what's gone well, what's gone poorly, and what's holding him back and why he's selling what they have been thus far. He wrote the following. The number that jumps out is the strikeout rate for the rotation. Fedde, Pallante, and Michaelis are all averaging fewer than 6 strikeouts per 9 innings, and it's difficult to remain successful in this era of baseball with a strikeout rate that low. Let's put it this way. Of the 116 pitchers that have thrown at least 40 innings this year, that trio, Pallante, Fedde, and Michaelis, rank 105, 106, and 111, respectively, in their strikeout rates, and yet they have combined for a 3.5 ERA. In the end, that lack of strikeout rate and the lack of pop offensively are the two things that really stand out. There is potential here to surprise and battle Chicago for the division winner, but for now, I'm not completely sold. Again, that came from David Schoenfeld, who I think does a really good job for ESPN.com. Alex, the two things that he pointed out there, lack of slug, lack of strikeouts for the starting staff. Are those things that concern you when it comes to the sustainability of how the Cardinals are winning?
The lack of slug, absolutely not, because they're finding ways to manufacture slug, and frankly, they're finding ways to win even if they don't have slug. Last night is a perfect example. Like Brendan Donovan's picking up the first run of the game with just a single right through the middle of the infield. So I don't think that's going to be a problem. Is it going to hit dips? Probably, but I've seen enough from this team in 2 months of the season to where even when they go through a dry spell, they're still finding ways to pick up the runs necessary. The swing and miss stuff is concerning. But right now, it's like I can't complain about it because despite their swing and miss stuff, they're still beating the Phillies. They're still beating the Mets. They're going up against the Detroit Tigers. They're beating all of these top-tier teams without the swing and miss stuff. And Michaelis has been really impressive, and we all know what Pallante and Fedde have. Seasons change once you get closer to the playoffs because typically offenses, the best ones that expect to be in the playoffs, they change the way that they play because playoff baseball just provides that. How does your pitching staff adapt deep into the season after you've thrown 120 innings? Where are you at? Can you still find and dig deep enough to come out even if that swing and miss stuff isn't there? But for right now, I'm not worried about it because they're still finding ways, even if they're not picking up the swing and miss stuff, they're still keeping the amount of runs for the opposition low, and the offense is giving them chances to win.
I think their lack of slug is a little overstated because, like, you look at their slugging percentage, you would think based on what David Schoenfeld wrote there, oh, okay, so they're probably like middle of the pack or bottom 10. Like, they're top 10 right now in slugging percentage. They're ahead of the Philadelphia Phillies, so I would look at their lineup and go, yeah, they're probably going to outslug you. That's not the case right now. So I think that's overstated. Now, they don't hit the home run ball, but they do hit a lot of doubles. And I think long as you are slugging, I don't care how it happens, right? To me, you need to be a top 10 slugging offense. If that means you're hitting a bunch of doubles, that means you're doing a bunch of triples, or you're just hitting a crap ton of home runs. I don't care long as it is in the top 10. So I'm not as worried about that. And to me, their doubles that they've had success with, none of that feels fluky in my opinion. The swing and miss is the one that I am a little worried about because that is something to where the reason that they can make it work right now with these three guys, Fedde, Michaelis, Pallante, is because their defense is so excellent. Now, I don't think that is going to be something that will eventually just go through a cold streak. To me, defense doesn't slump. But what can really throw this off is an injury or two around the diamond, right? If you end up losing a Mason Wynn, and it is something that is worse than what he had, which was a back problem, which only was a minimum 10 innings, you can get away with that. But if you did lose an elite defender like that, and then you maybe lost one of your defenders out in the outfield, that's where this can really start to have a trickle-down effect. And they're going to deal with injuries at some point.
Sure.
That's where I would be a little bit worried about it, because when you have swing and miss, that's how you can. Now, that 23 team was not good defensively, but if you had a better swing and miss rotation, you can get a little bit further away with bad defense. Look at the Philadelphia Phillies, for example. They're not a great defensive team, but why can they get away with it at times? It's because the rotation has so much swing and miss.
It is interesting because, I mean, you look at it, the Michaelis' underlying stats still aren't good, but the actual results look awesome. And a lot of that is because the defense behind him has been great. Andre Palante, underlying stats look really bad. Eric Fetty, underlying stats look pretty bad so far this year. That's 3/5 of your rotation. And those are the guys that he just mentioned as being like, these are the reasons why I'm worried. Can this, what we have seen thus far, continue to happen over the long haul? There's no reason to be concerned about Libby. Sonny Gray, despite the home run problems, has been really good for the Cardinals so far this season. It's like those guys you're totally cool with. I think that's ultimately going to dictate where we go with the season. Can the defense be so excellent? Can it remain so great? And it would have to be like legitimately all-time great. Because so far this year, they're like a plus 24 in outs above average, right? Let's pace that out over the course of the season. We're talking about them going plus 100-ish in outs above average, being 100 outs better than your typical team across Major League Baseball, your average team. That's ridiculous. Like, that would be an absurd season for any team. And maybe they're just capable of that. Maybe that's what we're watching right now is one of the best defenses that we've seen in recent memory. Or maybe they're not. And maybe they're just great, but not all-time great. And if that ends up being the case, the reason why I bring this up, it probably means you're going to see some regression from the three guys that we just talked about. And that means that the offense has to be that much better. Because right now, you're blowing teams out because the offense has been great and the pitching's been good. What the pitching coming back to earth means is more of your bullpen usage, and the offense has to take another step forward. So I'm a believer in this team, but if I was going to be worried about one thing over the other, I'm with you guys, it would be the staff for me.
Yeah, well, and the good part of, needing your offense to have more to their game later on in the season, if that does fall back, is they're not going to be as exhausted as they thought they were in the beginning of the season. Because that was my biggest concern was, they're going to have to score 8 or 9 runs every single game if the pitching is going to be like this. But now the pitching is giving you depth. It's giving you some swing and miss stuff, but it's not allowing your offense to have to go out there and score 7 or 8 runs now.
Sure.
Because again, playoff baseball kicks in June, July, August, and that's when teams take their game to the next level. And the offense isn't going to be as exhausted at that point of the season, rather than if in March, April, and May, these guys were having to chug out 9, 10, 11 runs because the pitching wasn't giving them any cushion.
So to put a finer point on what I was talking about with the outs above average, Alex, I just pulled this up. So what would you guys guess? Last decade, outs above average has been a statistic. And for those that aren't familiar, it's basically measuring like how good is your defense, right? How many outs do you record compared to your average team? How many outs above average do you think is the best of the last decade since this stat has been in existence from StatCast? The Cardinals, for context, are at plus 27 right now. What do you think is the best that any individual team has done in a single season? Best number.
I'll say plus... that 21 team was like plus 50 something.
Are we going just off the Cardinals, or are you going
any team
in baseball?
Any team in baseball over the last decade.
Plus 55.
I was going to say, I was thinking like plus 45.
Plus 65, it was the Twins in 2017. You're at plus 27 right now. We're roughly a third of the way through the season. For the Cardinals to sustain this defensively, they'd be talking like plus 75 or better. So you'd be significantly better than the best defensive team of the last decade if you continue at this pace that you're currently on as the Cardinals.
Hell yeah.
With the offense, that's better than 1901.
Now, there are two ways to discuss this, right? Either, yeah, that's what they're going to be. They're the best defensive team of the last decade. Or, I'm not sure they're going to be that. And if so, that's going to have... there's going to be an effect on your pitching, which is so reliant on that defense.
Here's my question, though. If somebody were to say this defense is not going to be that, where's the fall off?
I mean, it doesn't even have to be like they become bad. They just aren't the best.
Yeah.
But maybe a couple of those plays where they were making ridiculous defensive stops. Maybe a couple of them, it's an extra inch away from you.
Yeah.
And so instead of recording that extra out above average, it's, oh, man, it finally trickled into the outfield. Or instead of Lars Nootbaar going up to and against the wall and making the catch in foul territory, he doesn't quite get to that ball, right? It goes an extra 6 inches away, and it tails off from him. Those are the fine lines between best defense in the last decade and one of the best defenses in the last decade.
You're talking about luck. Then, like, sometimes that is going to go against you. But, man, speed right now for this team, specifically in the outfield, it just doesn't feel like that there's going to be plays that get out of reach for how quick they are in terms of catching up and taking the proper routes to fly balls or balls that are coming in.
Agreed. They're really good at everything they've done. They've been so good defensively this year, man. They're amazing. And I love watching every second of it. What I'm saying here is, like, I just don't know if I can expect that to continue at this level. They can still be the best in baseball this season while not being what they have been thus far. And if that happens, if they have a rubber band effect a little bit, where kind of like Ivan Herrera, right? I think Ivan Herrera is not going to hit 450 this year.
I can't. You're just bringing so much negative energy.
It's not because I don't think he's great. I think he might hit 300 for the season, which would probably lead Major League Baseball and certainly would be top 5 in the league. That means he's going to go through a slump at some point. This defense could also have a slump to the point where they are the equivalent defensively of a 315 hitter, which is best in the league, just not George Brett from the 1980s, right? So that's kind of where I'm at with them right now.
Out of curiosity, where's that? Do you still have the defensive metrics up in front of you?
Sure.
Where's the 2021 Cardinals rank?
Plus 51, which is second best of the last decade. The only team that was better was the Twins in 2017 at plus 65. So like that's what I'm talking about here.
Are there a lot of teams that were like plus 30 now above average?
39, 45, 47, 51, 44, 41, 35. Those are the best teams over the last decade in those individual seasons. So most of them were around 40.
Okay.
And the Cardinals, again, are at 27 today.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think they're going to be doing what you're talking about there. I agree with that. They are going to have some kind of regression, whatever that may look like. Even then, though,
Or they're simply great.
Yeah, I still think because they are going to be a great, not a all-time great defense, but a great defense, I still think it's going to minimize what that kind of rubber band effect will look like for the rotation. I think they will have it, but I do not think it is going to be significant to where you look at it and you go, whoa, what just happened to Miles Michaelis? That was 5 starts in a row where he was like one of the worst pitchers we've seen.
Again, I believe in this team. I think they're pretty good. I think they have a real chance to make
regression
the
a lot.
Yeah. My point really here, to explain myself why I think that this is really interesting. If the Cardinals don't become a playoff team, I think that's what happens. Like, that's how they don't end up getting there. I'm not super worried about this lineup. I think they have really good hitters. Barring injury, I think that they're going to be able to level out as a top 10-ish offense in baseball. I think the defense is awesome, even if it's not, like, the best in the history of the sport. I think the bullpen is really good. I do think that to bring up the lack of strikeout stuff from your starting staff and what that means if the defense stops being, again, the best ever, I think that's where you get to some reasonable level of concerns for the Cardinals the rest of the way. And the possibility that they're not just going to play like 800 baseball for the rest of the season. Again, I don't know that that is a crazy thing to suggest. All right, in 15 minutes, 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line. We're getting into a list of the 25 best college football players of the last 25 years. Had a lot of fun reading this earlier today. We'll pass it along to you in 15 minutes. Better to forget it coming up next.
Woo-hoo-hoo-hoo.
314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line. For Bet It or Forget It, you guys give us a scenario. We will tell you if we are betting it or forgetting it here on 101 ESPN. All right, guys, let's start out with this one. After yesterday, I said Lars Nootbaar lacks the slug that's necessary. He just shoved that right down my throat. Bet it or forget it, Lars Nootbaar finishes the year with at least 35 doubles and 25 home runs. He's on pace to do exactly that.
35 doubles, 20 home runs.
25 home runs.
Oh, 25.
The 25 home runs is what I'm...
Again, that's his current pace as of today. That's why I'm asking.
I'll say forget it because I don't think he gets to the 25 home run number. Now, probably going to shove that one down my throat, but I think you're close. I think you surpassed 20, but I think you're somewhere between 20 and 25, so I'll say forget it.
I'll say forget it as well because I'm skeptical on the 25 homers too. I think he might do the doubles. I don't know about the home runs. I think he's a 20 homer, a little bit more than 20. I don't know if he's going to get 25 to beyond that. So I would say forget this.
I'll say forget it as well. I'm still skeptical, but
Shove it down further.
man, what a season he's putting together right now. If you're curious how many Cardinals have done this in recent memory, especially Cardinals his age, that's the real change here. Guys that have gone 35 doubles, 25 homers in the last 2 decades. Albert Pujols, as you could probably imagine, did this a number of times. Jim Edmonds did it, as is the answer to any trivia question. Ryan Ludwig did this. Matt Holliday did it. Carpenter did it twice. Goldie and Arenado. Those are the only players that have done it for in a Cardinals uniform. Guys that have done this age 27 or younger, which is what Lars Nootbaar is right now. You have to go all the way back to Albert Pujols in 2007 for the last time that a Cardinal had done that. And before them, you're talking about... Wow. Stan Musial.
Oh, big gap there.
Right?
Big gap there.
Is that right? That's right. Wow.
Is it?
Yeah.
Is it right?
That's right.
That's right, T-Bone.
Yeah, 27 or younger, guys to do 35 doubles, 25 homers in a single season. Last 80 years. Albert Pujols, Stan Musial.
I'm Lars Nootbaar at some point.
Lars Nootbaar, Brendan Donovan, Ivan Herrera.
I will be
all
ready
of the
to
Cardinals.
I will be ready to say some wild-ish at the end of the season if that's truly going to happen. Guys, bet it or forget it. Post-trade deadline, 3 Cardinals players from the minor leagues will be mainstays on the major league roster.
3 in the minor leagues. I'll say forget it. The big out here is injuries. Like, injuries could really change this for you, but I'll say forget it.
And what I mean by this is
more likely
they're
to be
up
a buyer.
and they don't go back down.
Yeah, I'll say forget it.
I think I will forget
Graceffo doesn't count in this, right?
No, he's already up there.
He's already up here.
Just making sure.
You think I'm trying to do loopholes?
Well, I didn't know if you were talking about like guys that were in the minors to start the season, so Graceffo would count for that.
I was talking Roy Croft, Riley O'Brien, and Gordon Graceffo. Gotcha!
I'll say forget it. I don't know who the 3 would be. I could see like Quinn Matthews maybe. Like if he has like a really good like
I'd say the biggest one is probably Sajaci.
Yeah, so the 2 that I was thinking was McGreevy and Sajaci, and then who that 3rd one is.
Oh, I forgot about McGreevy.
And the reason I'm betting it is I wonder if Quinn Matthews is another bullpen arm for him.
Could be.
If you buy and sell, where you sell off a couple of pieces and you got the 2 pitchers that come up as reinforcements.
I'll still say forget it just because I don't know what their plan will be at the deadline. I would buy, but who knows? So I'll say forget it. Guys, bet it or forget it. Victor Scott will steal 45-plus bases this year.
Oh, geez, we're back to this again?
Victor Scott on the season has 13 thus far, so he is on pace at this point in the year for...
48, I think, is what this is at.
Okay. I'll say bet it. My concern here is, like, is he going to keep this up offensively? Is he going to be able to be a 340 on-base guy the rest of the way? We've seen him go through ups and downs this year. I'll say bet it, though, because he's fun as hell to watch, and I hope he does it.
Yeah, I'll go that way as well. I don't think it's going to happen. I'd like to forget it, but for the purposes of this Cardinals team, I think it would be awesome if he could do that, and he's one of my favorite players right now, so yeah, I'll say bet it.
I would bet it as well. I think he'll be able to do it, and I don't even know if he needs to have the 344 on base to be a guy that could get there. He causes so much havoc when he gets on. I think Billy Hamilton was a great stolen base. He was a great stolen base threat, but he was like a 310, 320 on base guy.
When he stole 50 in A-ball, he had a 365 on base percentage.
I think people underestimated how good he is at like just batter's eye stuff.
Yeah.
Getting on base, drawing his walks, taking a good at bat. Victor Scott has always had Really good play discipline.
This dude always, like throughout his minor league career, has basically been a 370 or better on base percentage.
He was really good. And then last year, things went awry. He came up to the big leagues before he was ready. Things went sideways for him. Offseason fixed all of it. Now he's ready to go. It's just like a 1-year blip for Victor Scott. Otherwise, he's been great. All right, let's get into this from the text line, 314-399-9646 from Starvin Marvin. Guys, better to forget it. Marner gets more AAV than Mikko Rantanen. Rantanen got $12 million per year. Will Mitch Marner get more?
Oh, yeah, I'll bet this one because Rantanen he took that AAV in Dallas because obviously it's tax-free and he wanted to be on the competitive team. I think Marner's going to go to a team that's going to give him about 14 or so mil. So, yeah, I'm going to bet this one.
Yeah, I would bet it too. I mean, that's the contract you're looking at going, all right, top that. Right?
I think
now
he's
you've seen him do that. I mean, if you're him, why would I sign for less than that?
I think he's going to try and go for more than what Austin Matthews had.
I don't think there's any chance he gets less than what Mikko Rantanen signed for. I'd be absolutely shocked in that scenario. All right, better to forget it. Adding a number 1 starter would make the Cardinals a legitimate title contender.
Yeah, bet it.
Like if you put Skubal on the Cardinals, you change nothing else about the team, but you just put Skubal on the Cardinals, are they a title contender?
I'd say so. I mean, you got 3 dudes that when they take them out, I mean, you're expecting them to be lights out. Your offense, we've talked about, is great. Your bullpen right now could be one of the best. Yeah, I'd say bet it.
I think it would depend on if the Dodgers are healthy. If the Dodgers are healthy, I just don't know how anybody beats them.
Yeah.
I know it's baseball. Weird stuff happens. It would not be the first time that an all-time great team ends up going down in the postseason before you expected. But
still a title contender, though.
I don't know that I would consider anybody a title contender in the National League other than the Dodgers if the Dodgers are fully healthy. And again, I know how defeatist that sounds, given the fact that like this happens all the time. But this is the year where I think it's different. But they're not healthy right now. So if they did add an ace, I would say, yeah, I'm betting this. I think they would be a title contender.
See, maybe I'm more positive on the team, which is shocking. But like I said this yesterday, I don't think there's a team in baseball that I look at and go, boy, Cardinals don't have a chance. I would definitely favor the Dodgers when healthy. And if you added an ace to this team, I think I would agree. They probably are a playoff or a World Series contender because now you got a legitimate 1-2-3 punch in Skubal, Gray, and Liberatore. That fourth guy, you could do whatever. You could even do a bullpen game in the playoffs. They would have to add to their bullpen, but to me, they would be there. Their offense will give them a fighting chance, I still believe.
All right, 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service X line. A couple more here before we get to the best college football players of the last 25 years. Guys, better to forget it. The Blues will go after John Tavares this offseason.
I'm going to forget it because I don't think he's leaving Toronto. Sounds like he really wants to stay in Toronto. Already said he had conversations with Brad Treliving. My guess is that dude's going to sign for cheap because Toronto's not going to want to spend a lot of money, but he doesn't want to leave.
Makes sense.
And if you're Berube, if you're not going to keep Marner, you at least want to keep your center depth because then it's still Matthews, Tavares, Domi, and Lawton. So I think he's going to stay in Toronto.
I agree with Alex. Forget it.
Yeah, I'll forget it as well.
All right, last thing here, guys. Bet it or forget it. The Cardinals will finish with a better winning percentage on the season than the Blues did. The Blues were at a .537 winning percentage. Let me see what that would mean in terms of their overall record.
Isn't that like 85 wins?
Probably, because talking 82 versus 160.
86. Like 86 or more wins.
Yeah, bet it. Bet it. For some reason, I thought we were playing
86 games.
I'm done thinking this team's an 80-win team. Like, this is now 85 or more.
Huh?
Potentially 90 if they continue this offense that we've been seeing them go out there.
Alex is in, baby.
Dude,
he has been red-pilled. He is all the way in on the 2025 Cardinals.
Rocked up, ready to go. I didn't put the conductor hat on. I want to, but I'm not putting it on in honor of all of you.
I would bet
I'm getting closer.
How is it that I got here before him?
I don't know. Dude,
Have you been cheated on a lot in your life?
No, I think only once or twice.
Okay, that's a lot for me. That's a lot for me, man. So, okay.
Talk about it? Should we get into it?
Yeah, I was going to say, we need to get into this because you've been hurt, man. I think we need to have a therapy Thursday.
Yeah.
I mean,
together.
Whatever you need.
You and I just need to sit down.
I feel like at this point, people know I'm an open book, man. I'll let you know. You got a question, I'll answer it, honestly.
Just like, I don't understand how hurt you are, man.
Very.
Just like, how? I hated this team for the last 2 years, and now I'm like,
I know.
on board.
We're here trying to celebrate. Holy crap, this team's real good because he's like, well, there's regression coming.
Wow.
Just let you know, it's not going to be this fun.
They're not going to be historically great. They'll be really good.
My job is to tell you it's not always as good as it feels in the moment. It's not as bad as it feels in the moment.
No, your job.
Somewhere in the middle.
Your job from April till September is to be a Cardinals honk.
Yeah.
That's your job.
No,
I have from September until April. You
Alex,
got the other 6.
It felt that way because you hated the team so much. And I was over here saying, man, they're like pretty average. I think they could win 80 games. And you were like, no, 60 or bust.
Well, that's true.
Right.
That's true. I didn't hate this team, though, before you and I started working together, which might tell me.
No, you did. You just didn't have to talk about them every day.
Well, that's true.
That was the
Blues.
difference.
Yeah.
When you can just be Blues pre and post, it's a little different.
Shots fired.
That sounded bad. When you have the
Shots
opportunity
fired.
to
I did
to
cover
not
the team
talk
for
about the
6
Cardinals
years.
day-to-day. Yeah, and you didn't enjoy that either.
Well, that was just because you're day-to-day at the ballpark. That's a long season.
Dude, it's a long day.
Like, the days off in between hockey seasons, you appreciate those a lot more when you're doing baseball 5 days a week, going every single day from 3 until 12 o'clock.
I love being at the ballpark, though. T-Bone and I will be down there later on this afternoon. Coming up in 15 minutes, we're going to dive into the junk drawer. But next, who are the best college football players of the last 25 years? The most dominant guys that you watched during the course of the last 25 years. The Athletic put out their list earlier today. We've got a couple of tweaks that we'd make to it. We'll tell you next year on 101 ESPN. It's time to unlock your inner champion, and the place to do so is with Victory Men's Health. That means different things for different people listening right now. For you, maybe it's weight loss goals that you're trying to meet. Maybe it's erectile dysfunction issues that you've been dealing with in the past. They can help you out with those, or low testosterone. It is something that affects a lot of men, especially my age and a little bit older. You feel like you don't have the same energy as you once did. You're not getting the same amount of results out of your workouts. If those are things that you've been dealing with, they can test your testosterone levels over at Victory Men's Health. It's a super easy process. Book that first appointment today. VictoryMen'sHealth.com. When you get there, upper right-hand corner of the page, it says book now. Put in your name, email, phone number. Tell them BK with 101 ESPN sent you, and tell them what it is for you to unlock your inner champion. Again, erectile dysfunction issues, weight loss goals that you're trying to meet, low testosterone, vitamin infusion, supplement shop, red light therapy programs, cardiovascular testing. They have it all available for you at their 4 great locations across the St. Louis area and online at VictoryMen'sHealth.com.
Tanner Hendrickson here. They Sports Center update driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. Cardinals beat the Tigers last night 11-4. They'll be back in action tonight. 6:45 will be first pitch. Eric Fetty will be on the mound for St. Louis. Tariq Skubal will be on the mound for Detroit. This Sports Center update is driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. CMLondoff.com. Chevy, together we drive. Are you kidding me?
So who are the best college football players, the most dominant college football players that we've seen over the last 25 years? Bruce Feldman put out his list earlier today over on The Athletic. I wanted to talk about this with Alex and T-Bone here on BK and Ferrario as well. 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line. YouTube chat is off and running today, as always, at youtube.com/101ESPN STL. All right, I want to start out with the top 5 from this list, Alex, because I do think number 1, I would have to imagine, is number 1 on everybody's list. I think it is very clearly, at least for me, the guy that was more dominant in his run in college football than anybody I've ever seen, and that's Cam Newton. Quarterback at Auburn. That team, when you look back, was actually not all that great. It was fine, but they didn't have a bunch of future all-pros in the NFL or anything. It was just Cam and a bunch of guys. And they won the national championship behind his just absolute dominance that season. Number 2, Reggie Bush. That totally checks out for me. Number 3, Ndamukong Suh. I still believe, truly in my heart of hearts, that he was robbed of a Heisman Trophy. Number 4, Joe Burrow. And number 5 was Lamar Jackson on their list of the 25 best college football players of the last 25 years. Alex, I have no issue whatsoever with that top 3. More than fair. Number 1, Cam. Number 2, Reggie. Number 3, Ndamukong Suh. I'm cool with that. I do think 4 and 5 were pushed up the list a little bit too much for me, though. I think Joe Burrow was great, but it was really one season of just incredible performances by him. And I do think it was a little less. I'll downgrade it a bit from what I saw in that season from Cam Newton because of the supporting cast where he had Justin Jefferson and Jamar Chase available to him.
He did an NFL offensive roster on the field every single shift.
And then Lamar Jackson, while great in college, don't get me wrong, I do downgrade his a little bit because and this is not his fault necessarily. He played at Louisville and the supporting cast wasn't as great. He never did it on the same national stage as Cam Newton or Joe Burrow for that.
Well, and you just mentioned Cam Newton's supporting cast wasn't that great, and they won a national championship. So.
I would have Vince Young and Tim Tebow both ahead of the 2 quarterbacks that I just mentioned in Lamar Jackson and Joe Burrow. How did you feel as you were looking at this list? What stood out to you?
That's what stood out to me because my list was Reggie Bush, Cam Newton, Vince Young, Tim Tebow, and Ndamukong Suh, because those were the 5 guys that, for me, I just felt like every single week it was glued to the television and watching them dominate. I did agree. Joe Burrow, when I saw it, I was like, man, Joe Burrow had 1 year at LSU and everyone was talking about it. But prior to that, nobody was talking about it. And the same can be said for Lamar Jackson. And it wasn't just 1 year with Lamar because he was dominant from start to finish. But there was never an end game where it was like, oh, Lamar Jackson, national championship, carried the team on his back. To whereas, like, I witnessed every one of these guys in my top 5 carry their team on their shoulders for the entirety of it. So, yeah, Vince Young and Tim Tebow were the 2 that should have been in there, and I had Joe Burrow and Lamar dropped down.
Yeah, and see, I have Burrow ahead of Vince Young, but that's just because, like, I don't remember.
You don't
Vince
remember.
Young.
Yeah.
Like, I have no recollection. I barely have much memory of Cam Newton. I do remember him being very good, though.
This is going to sound way more Tony than I wanted it to.
Well,
if you have Joe Burrow ahead of Cam Newton, ahead of Vince Young, it's because you didn't watch Vince Young. Yeah. It's the only explanation. It's because true. Vince Young was that dominant, dude. He was my first probably favorite college football player. Like the guy that I was growing up, because he was going through his stretch really from like 04 to 06, I want to say.
Yeah, because Tebow was after him, wasn't he?
Yeah, just after him. But he was at the same time as Bush and Leinart, because it was that unbelievable season where it all came to a crescendo with Vince Young in Texas versus USC, Matt Leinart, Reggie Bush. I will never forget the lead up to that game. They were going through the greatest college football teams of all time, and both Texas and USC were prominently featured on that list from that season, that 05 team, I think it was. Vince Young was the guy. I was like 12, 13 years old at the time, and he was the one that really made me fall in love to a great degree with college football.
Yeah, that's how I was.
Unreal, dude.
Yeah, that USC Texas matchup was the one that, I mean, I fell in love with college football at that point, and Vince Young specifically. Vince Young and Reggie Bush were the 2 guys specifically for me.
We've had a lot of texts, and Alex, you brought up the exact same name. I find this fascinating. A lot of people are bringing up, what about Jadeveon Clowney? wasn't he one of the 25 most dominant college football players of the last 25 years? My answer to that is just a definitive no. I never felt that way when Clowney was in college. Now, he had a really good season in 2012, and he finished 6th in the Heisman voting that season. But his really good season was 13 sacks. I know this sounds weird because it's not the same, but like Michael Sam at Mizzou or Charles Harris at Mizzou or even Shane Ray at Mizzou all had more dominant collegiate careers than what Jadeveon Clowney did at South Carolina. Clowney just had a moment in a bowl game against Michigan where he decleated somebody and their helmet popped off. That's the moment that all of us think of. I think that was the Outback Bowl, if I'm not mistaken. And we all remember that, but otherwise he was really good. I never felt as though he was some dominant player in college, though. It was always about his potential at the NFL level.
Yeah, I think it was because of those viral clips, because you think of these other guys we're talking about, clips weren't a big thing back then. Clowney at the time, you were seeing everything on social media because of it. I did feel like he was dominant that 2012 season where he had the 13 sacks, he had 40 solo tackles. I felt like he was somebody that was putting South Carolina on the map of how they were playing, but I can understand the argument of he's not a top 10 most dominant college football players.
Oh, somebody brought up a great one, and I'm shocked his name is not on this list. I didn't even notice it at first. I should have. Johnny Manziel not being on this list is a travesty. That's a great one, dude. Johnny Manziel was unreal.
Yeah.
If
Baker's on this, Johnny Manziel should be on this.
Baker's at, I think, 14 on this list of the 25 best players.
Manziel should be on this.
Andrew Luck is at number 12. Andrew Luck was great in college, but again, his was more about what he could be at the NFL level because everything he was doing in college translated to the NFL level. I would say, for me, I think you can make a pretty strong argument for Johnny Manziel as a top 10 college football player of the last 25 years.
I'd agree with that.
He was that good. Nobody beat Alabama. That dude did it, I think it was twice in consecutive seasons with Texas A&M.
Because how many touchdowns did Lamar throw? Didn't he throw 65 total in his career at Louisville?
I can check that for
you. I thought it was 65 because Manziel threw 63 and he played 2 seasons in college.
It was ridiculous, dude.
And I think Lamar
threw 69 touchdowns. He also had 50 rushing touchdowns.
Yeah, well, very true, very true. Manziel did not have that.
120 touchdowns in his career.
But, to make the point, we're talking about a guy who won the Heisman and then was top 5 in the Heisman, and the year he was top 5 in the Heisman threw 37 touchdowns.
How many rushing touchdowns did you say Lamar had?
50.
Okay, I was whoa, because I didn't realize this. Johnny Manziel ran for 21 in his freshman year, which is wild.
Dude, Johnny Manziel was ridiculous. Somebody else on the text line brings up Adrian Peterson, another all-time great dude.
Seeing RG3 come up a lot too.
He was amazing.
Yeah, he was kind of like Vince Young territory for me, where it was like, okay, this guy's going to be legit. And
dude,
then of course the
freshman year by Adrian Peterson was, absolutely absurd to watch. He was a man among boys. He was the rare guy, Alex. This almost never happens. It's happened a few times. I think this past year, actually, we had a guy at Ohio State, Jeremiah Smith, I think is his name, the receiver from Ohio State. A freshman that could have immediately gone to the NFL and would have been fine. I think part of why they have that 3-year rule for college football players is because maturity-wise, physicality, you're not ready to go to the next level. It's just so much bigger, faster, stronger at the NFL level than college. Adrian Peterson was the exception. He was ready after 1 year of college to go play in the NFL and would have been great in year 2 of his time in college.
Can I bring up one that if he did make my top 25, 1, it will show my age, first off. So that's a caveat, so don't yell at me.
Go ahead.
And 2, he would probably be back in top 25. Was Ezekiel Elliott?
Dude, that's the one I was just Googling.
Because I just looked up his numbers because you mentioned Adrian Peterson, and I remember Elliott being really good. And I don't know if that was because he had a college football playoff game where he just went off, or if it was something that I missed. He rushed for more yards in 2 seasons than Adrian Peterson did in his final 2 years.
He never was a top 5 Heisman finalist. And I think that's really what hurts him. If you were not a top 3 player of that year at any point in your career, based on the Heisman finalists, I think that's really tough, especially so his best year, Ezekiel Elliott, was 2015, and Christian McCaffrey Leonard Fournette and Dalvin Cook all finished ahead of him in the Heisman voting that season.
And Derrick Henry. Henry won it that year.
Yeah, so it's just tough. If you got 3 or 4 other running... By the way, Henry is another one that we could throw in here.
I'm surprised none of us brought that
3 or
one
4
up.
other running backs that were finishing ahead of you in your best season. It's hard for me to say you're a top 25 player of your era. You know what I mean?
That's fair. I just, for some reason, like, when I think of Ezekiel Elliott, and I don't know if you guys feel this way, for some reason, I remember his season at Ohio State more than I remember Derrick Henry's time at Alabama. And I don't know if that's because he had a huge playoff game.
Because he had a title.
And that's probably it. Yep. And that's why, like, for me, Henry, like, I'm not taking anything away.
Also, you think of that roster that Henry had with Alabama versus the Ohio State. I mean, like, the quarterbacks were Cardale Jones and J.T. Barrett.
It's somebody else.
Not the who's who.
Somebody else mentioned Manti Te'o. Manti Te'o was a great player at the college level. Who would you have, T-Bone? I know that some of this list is really for you. It's the last like 15 years more so than anything else. But when you think about Illinois over the past 15 years, who would you have as? They probably would not end up making this list, of course, but as your best player for Illinois of the last 15 years.
Oh gosh, they were so bad for so many years. Juice Williams, their quarterback, was very good. I don't know if he'd be number 1. What's weird is like Witherspoon would be high up on that list, who just got drafted at the corner. That's with Seattle. I mean, he was a stud. He was unbelievable. He's probably, if he's not 1, he's like top 3. I don't. Juice Williams might be my answer, but I don't even really remember him playing. I kind of remember like seeing him play against Mizzou. Like I faintly remember that, and then I can remember watching. I think he was the quarterback the year they went to the Rose Bowl, if I'm not mistaken. I can remember growing up watching that game on like the Big Ten Classic on Big Ten Network. But outside of that, we just haven't had a ton of great players that I would throw on that to like even throw out there for consideration. The running back they had a couple years ago, but I'm trying to blank on his name now. Chase Brown. Yeah. Chase Brown would be on that list for me.
I think for Mizzou, it's probably Chase, right?
Yeah, Chase is the one that comes to mind immediately.
Yeah, I think Chase Daniel's probably the guy that you'd have to go with for Mizzou. There are a lot of guys that you could go with as like secondary pieces for there. Luther would be up there among the greats. They've had like 4 or 5 different defensive ends that you could throw into this conversation. Alden Smith, Justin Smith,
Marcus Golden.
Golden, but you could even go with his running mates there, like Michael Sam.
Yeah, Michael Sam.
Eventually, Charles Harris, Shane Ray, like all those dudes that came through. Armand Membu is a tackle, so it's different, but he was amazing for Mizzou as well. They've had a lot of guys over the last 15 to 20 years now that could fit into this conversation. I think you could throw Drew Luck into that conversation as well. Didn't have the team success, but himself, he was a really good quarterback in his time at Mizzou. Little better recent history than what Illinois has to
Dorial
offer.
Green Beckham, obviously.
Luther, Jeremy Maclin, Spoon. Those would probably be the guys that I'd throw up there. I mean, Nick Bolton was excellent for them
Nick Bolton was
for a
awesome.
period of time as well. I've had some really good players, especially like that 07 to 2013 range, and then the last 4 years really under Eli Drinkwitz. Not too bad. All right, he's Alex. That's T-Bone on BK. Coming up in 15 minutes, is Brendan Donovan going through his Matt Carpenter renaissance? We'll talk about that coming up here in just a little bit. The Junk Drawer is next here on BK and Ferrario. Alex, I wonder if this individual is originally from your neck of the woods in South County.
Well, I'm Jefferson County, first of all, but also
Sorry,
terrible rap you guys put on Jefferson County. We're a great area.
I mean,
we're a great area.
if I remember correctly, I think it was...
I hear TMA make fun of it a lot, too. We're a wonderful area, Jefferson County.
God's country down there.
Darn right it is.
Jeremy Rutherford, I believe, was the one that mentioned this. All of his friends used to say, hey, I've got this lawsuit coming. Got this litigation. I got this money coming our way.
Well, I did have two of those, but not in my doing. I wasn't seeking them. They happened.
Well, there is one that is taking place down in Texas right now. A Texas man is suing burger chain Whataburger over onions. And he's asking for almost $1 million for what he says are personal injuries. Let me explain this to you, Alex. Wilson is accusing Whataburger of failing to act in accordance with appropriate standard of care, and which caused him to suffer personal injuries in this. Why? He claims he asked for no onions on his burger, but he got some anyway.
What was the personal injury?
He got the onions.
How?
On July 24th of 2024, at an undisclosed Whataburger
You know what?
location.
Shame on you for saying this is a Jefferson County lawsuit. Get out of here.
He had an allergic reaction that needed medical attention.
Oh, okay.
He did not specify what he ordered, but the chain's namesake burger has a beef patty, mustard, tomato, lettuce, pickle, and yes, diced onions. He was then served those onions, and he ends up getting a potential lawsuit.
That's a fair lawsuit.
He's asking for monetary relief of over $250K, but less than $1 million in damage.
That's a fair lawsuit. I don't see the problem here. If he's allergic to onions and he said no onions and they put onions in there, well, that's on you.
I feel like you should be able to get some amount of money. And if he had a serious reaction, it sounds like it was a relatively mild
He
reaction.
probably needed what were those EpiPens or whatever, where you have the allergic reaction when you eat something.
If you have a serious reaction to it, I do think you should get your just due. $250,000 for this feels like a lot. Am I wrong on this? I'm coming at this not knowing anything about it. Just full disclosure. Feels like a lot of money.
I mean, it feels like a lot of money, but I guess you got to assume the personal damage, the medical bills that come into it. They always, because I'm experienced in lawsuits, according to BK, they go.
You've had multiple.
They go for future.
Me and T-Bone have combined for zero, and you've had multiple.
They go for future. Look. Let me back myself up here for a minute, okay? You guys are out here like I'm seeking lawsuits. One was for a medical issue that they missed a tumor in my mouth for 13 years.
It sounds like a grifter to me.
And the other was my daughter went down a slide at a kid's place and sliced her ear right in half. Not like I was seeking these, but they go for future reparations.
Sounds like pushed your daughter down.
The place that we sued asked that, and I'm like, no, I have a picture of her going down the slide. I'm holding her hand as she's going down. But you got the future reparations, and then you've got the lawyer fees that go into it also. I mean, $200. I don't understand that side of it. Lawyers can explain this better to me.
Sure.
Why you do at minimum $250, like that's what we want, but then you put give us $1 million, because then the company would okay, well, we'll give you $250K.
Can I give you the kicker? Not the first time that he's sued over onions. He's also suing Sonic, the drive-in, for the same issue.
Again, I get it. If I'm him, if I go places and I have a allergy where I say there no onions, please.
Can I ask you a follow-up to this? Listen,
this is gonna be Tony. Kadarius.
If you have a serious onion issue, don't you check your burger first?
Okay.
Like the first time that it happens, I get how that happens, right? We all have you go somewhere, you expect it to be a certain way, and then it's not, and you're like, what the bleep? Yeah, I get that. If it's already happened to you and you sued somebody at a fast food chain for putting the onions on the burger when you asked for them not to.
Let's play devil's advocate for devil's advocate. If I'm him and I've already gotten one lawsuit and another restaurant's going to screw it up, why not go for another one?
Yeah, I get that.
I mean...
Somebody said, I'm not messing with Alex. That dude might ruin me financially.
Well, it'll go in your favor saying I'm 1 for 2 in those lawsuits. So. And of course, the medical one was the one that it was well, sorry.
Coming up in 15 minutes, we're going to dive into some NFL quick hitters. Apparently, the NFL is looking at a new rule change for the onside kick.
Sorry, somebody's making fat shaming jokes saying should have checked your burger first. I don't think that's necessary.
All right. In 15 minutes, NFL quick hitters with the change that might be coming to the onside kick rule. I think the NFL is just delaying the inevitable with that. But next is Brendan Donovan going through his Matt Carpenter renaissance. We'll talk about it next year on 101 ESPN.
Alex Ferrario back with you to tell you about my friends out at Rhino Shield. If you own a business, then this is the company that you need to call to take care of the exterior of your business, because you don't want your clients driving by, seeing where your business is at and seeing a worn down looking building, paint chipping off of the side. RF and MC Mechanical Services, one of the many businesses in the area that called Darren over at Rhino Shield and have them give their business a facelift. And what it is, it's a ceramic coating process. It sticks 8 to 10 times thicker than paint. It's actually engineered to outlast paint, all backed by a 25-year transferable warranty with Rhino Shield. But it's 100% waterproof, so you don't have to worry about all of the moisture we get in the springtime and in the wintertime. Or it's also 90% deflecting the UV rays, so it's saving you money on energy bills, plus that sun is not going to deteriorate the paint. Basically, when you put Rhino Shield's work on the outside of your home or your business, you don't have to worry about it for 25 years. It looks brand new. So give Darren a call today. Tell him Alex Ferrario sent you. 877-25-RHINO, 877-25RHINO.com.
All right, we're going to get to this Brendan Donovan conversation here in just a moment, but I brought this up off the air. I want to bring it on air for a moment. A guy had a 6-leg parlay over on FanDuel that he put together on all of the respective teams, individuals that could win their big championship for this year. So the Dodgers, Ohio State, Philadelphia Eagles, he had all of them winning their titles. He had Joey Logano winning the NASCAR Cup Series championship as well. All of those hit. It was a $4 wager. He hit on the first 4 big legs of it. You've got 2 legs left. He's got OKC to win the NBA title and Edmonton to win the Stanley Cup final, Alex. The $4 wager to win $94,000. That's what's at stake here. FanDuel is offering him $10,000 to cash out today. Or you could let it ride, and again, you could potentially win $94,000, but you've got to let it ride on OKC to win the title and Edmonton to win the title. Now, those 2 teams, Edmonton right now is like 3-1 to win the Stanley Cup final. OKC is the overwhelming favorite to win the NBA Finals at -180. You parlay those together, $10,000 wager, which is what they're offering you, would win you like $45,000. Are you cashing out or are you letting this thing ride?
Cash the F out. Easy decision. I'm in my car driving wherever I need to cash out. Would you rather have $10,000 or 0?
I mean, I would rather have 90.
Cool, but $10,000's for you right now. I'd rather have 94, but I could also get 0 when one of those 2 teams chokes.
I feel really good about OKC. I think they're going to win the title this year. They are, as Vegas just suggested, the overwhelming favorite to do so. Edmonton's the one that makes me really nervous because I do think Dallas is going to win that series, but Vegas has Edmonton installed right now as the favorite in that series. I think I'm letting it ride. See what happens in the first couple of games of the Western Conference Finals and both sides of this. And then if you're in a good spot, I think then you definitely let it ride, and otherwise maybe then you take it down. Even if it loses you a couple grand, it was $4. I'm going to try to go out there and win this
I'm
thing.
not letting $10,000 ride on a dude who's got an .884 save percentage in the playoffs right now. No way.
Somebody said just hedge it yourself. Why? It's a $4 wager. Like I'm not hedging this thing.
Dude, I get $10,000 for $4? Absolutely.
Yeah, I'm either letting it ride for now. I think the time when you would potentially hedge this is if they were to both get to the finals of their respective sports, and then you decide.
Someone said, "What are you scared of? It's $4." I'm scared of the fact that I had $10,000 sitting in front of me, and now I get nothing.
Yeah.
That's what I'm scared of. I lose sleep at night over that if that happens.
Somebody said cash in and then place a two-team parlay. If you're going to do the 2-team parlay, you might as well let it ride, though, because you're not getting the same odds now that you did whenever this was placed. So,
oh, yeah, and that would piss me off even more if I cashed in, bet it, and then they hit.
Totally.
Then
That's
I'm like, I missed
scenario.
94. Cash it out and then don't watch OKC or Edmonton for the rest of the way. Who cares?
All right, so I saw the stat yesterday. Tom Orff is a historian. A lot of his stuff that he does is for Mizzou, but he's also based here in St. Louis. So he puts out some really interesting numbers on the Cardinals as well. He tweeted this out yesterday, Alex. Brendan Donovan is the 10th Cardinal with at least 42 singles and 16 doubles in the first 48 games of a Cardinal season. The last to do so was Stan Musial back in 1957. Pretty good company that he's keeping right there. All right, so I wanted to look at this, and the doubles are really what stands out about what Brendan Donovan has done thus far. He's been a doubles machine. He is on pace as of today to finish the 2025 season with 55 doubles. Yes, basically matching what Matt Carpenter did in his record-breaking season for the Cardinals. He's also on pace for more than 200 hits. These are traditional, like, baseball enthusiasts from 50 years ago. These are numbers that they would look at and be like, that is a hell of a season. 200 hits, 50-plus doubles. That's the kind of season that people really respected, even traditionally speaking, right? So I wanted to look at this. Who are the Cardinals that have finished with at least 200 hits and 50 doubles in any individual season? In recent memory, it's literally just Albert Pujols. He's the one guy that has been able to do something like this, and he did it back in 2003.
Carpenter didn't do it?
Carpenter did not. He did not get to the 200-hit threshold. Others, though, that have done it. Stan Musial, as you would expect, he did it twice, 46 and 53. Joe Medwick, because of course, 36 and 37. And then Tip O'Neill, back in 1987, had 225 hits and 52 doubles. He led the league in hits, doubles, and home runs in the 1887 season.
And he obviously won an MVP.
I can check that out for you.
I don't know if
they
that was
don't
a
have
thing
MVPs back then. In
whatever.
1887, no way they had an MVP back then.
He was amazing.
He's an MVP
deserving.
in my book.
7-win player. Do you think they talked about it like that? Man, that was a 7-win player.
There
that
was
season.
totally a nerd like BK back in 1887 that was like, I don't know if you guys see the expected low bacon numbers for Tip O'Neill right now, but it is out of this world.
He led the league in doubles, triples, homers, and RBIs. Pretty good year.
Did they
overall.
even calculate? I don't even know if they calculated slug back then. Like, no chance.
We
right?
have it, but
I don't
I'm
think
not
it
sure
was
that
a
They
at the
thing.
didn't
time.
calculate it back.
Yeah.
No, they used pencil and paper. That's how they calculated. Hey, he got the second base. There's another double.
Back when baseball was baseball, am I right?
Dude sitting at the top of the press box with a typewriter that was tracking everything in
The
that
reason
one.
I wanted to bring this up in the historical precedent for what Brendan Donovan is doing right now is he basically just becoming Matt Carpenter? Is that what we're watching? Because you look back to 2013, I think it was, when Matt Carpenter broke the record. Like, this is basically what he was. He was a guy that we were always wondering at the time, like, is this real? Are we actually going to see Matt Carpenter, who kind of came out of nowhere at the time, is he going to be able to sustain this? And then he just did. He had 300 for the season, 55 doubles, was just an unbelievable player for them. Is that Donnie's season that we're watching right now?
I think so. By the way, just pure Robert. Could we please just put Carpenter's name in there? He had 199 hits. One off. Unbelievable.
Didn't quite get there,
I
man.
blame Matheny not playing him that extra game. That's what really shot it down with this one. Yeah, I think you are. I mean, now Matt Carpenter was such a special player because he was that doubles king, but then he shifted into adding more power to his game. Now, that's when things started to change a little bit, but I don't know if Donovan's ever going to be a guy that hits 36 home runs. Frankly, I wouldn't put any money on that.
No.
But I think he's
I didn't
a guy.
think Carpenter would either, though, at the time, to be fair.
And I hope that Donovan doesn't go down that path where you start to substitute some of that on-base percentage and the ability to make contact to get the power. I think Brendan Donovan is the perfect type of player, just like Matt Carpenter was, where it's like you get the power from getting at second base every time you swing that bat, and then on top of it, you've got guys that drive you in. I mean, he finished top 10 twice in MVP voting. One, he was 12th. Like, that to me is something that I think Brendan Donovan can consistently be at because his game doesn't change. He's always this guy. It's the same conversations we're having with Herrera now. Smaller sample size with Herrera, but ever since we've seen Brendan Donovan get to the bigs, he's been the exact same player.
So glad you brought that up because that's what's going to make Brendan Donovan, and I'm not saying this to diminish anything that Matt Carpenter accomplished or how he's viewed here in St. Louis. People love Matt Carpenter, but it is one thing that holds him back a little bit because Matt Carpenter was miscast as the number one guy in the lineup. He was never going to be that. Matt Carpenter was a guy that is like the Robin to your Batman, and he can be the Robin to a Batman on a really good team, a legit contender. But for most of his career, especially post like 2013, basically, he was asked to be something a little bit more than that in the lineup. And Ivan Herrera's emergence could mean that Brendan Donovan's not going to be asked to be that.
Right.
Brendan Donovan can just play his role. He's not going to be asked to be a middle of the order hitter, although right now he is batting third in your lineup, but he's not asked to do more than what he's capable of. So far this year, he has 3 home runs. He's on pace for 10 this year, and not one of us are talking about the lack of legit home run power from him because of everything else that he's bringing to the table, and because you have other guys that can do that for you in this lineup. Carpenter, it was necessary. He had to add some of that power because they lacked it from anybody else in their batting order. So I do think Ivan Herrera's emergence, if this continues, is going to be a big thing for Brendan Donovan and also for Lars Nootbaar and some of these other young guys. It takes so much pressure on them.
Well,
of them.
and I think that Matt Carpenter 2013 season is a perfect example because, like you're talking about, that season, the year he hit 55 doubles, Yachty was third in MVP voting. Alan Craig was still crushing the baseball. Matt Holliday, Carlos Beltran was having an all-star-esque season. You had 5 guys in the lineup that were doing all of the damage, and Carpenter can just kind of slide in with this one. Now you look at what this team's doing with Lars Nootbaar, with Ivan Herrera, with Wilson Contreras, with Mason Wynn. Like, Brendan Donovan just gets to be a piece to the puzzle, not just be the centerpiece of the whole thing.
We finally did it. It took us a long time to get here, but they finally have recreated that 2013 lineup that I love so much. I'm like 5 years into saying the Cardinals are going to find a way to do this, and they finally did it, man. I'm really proud of them.
I hope for your sake that it continues the rest of the season and doesn't just go the rest of the way.
Hey, did baseball fall into something this past weekend? I don't know if you guys saw this. The rivalry weekend, as they called it.
Am I right, T-Bone?
People got really excited about this. It was really just the regional interleague play.
Hey, who cares about the Mariners? Who the Mariners take on?
I don't remember.
The Mariners and the Giants?
Was that it was something like that. It was down the coast.
Doesn't matter.
The inaugural rivalry weekend drew 1.6 million fans across 45 games, producing Major League Baseball's best weekend total and average for attendance prior to Memorial Day weekend since 2012. I know T-Bone crapped all over this going into the weekend.
We all did.
And I understand it.
I loved it.
Like, listen, are the Braves and Red Sox like some big historical rivalry that I was unaware of? Maybe. Maybe not, though. Tigers, Blue Jays, was that a rivalry that I was unaware of prior to this past weekend? Again, maybe.
Detroit, Toronto.
I do think what they were trying to accomplish, though, the Mariners, by the way, played the Padres. I think it worked.
That's not a rivalry.
Clearly. I don't know if it's something that, like, calling it rivalry weekend is not necessarily accurate. I would say it's like more regional weekend than anything else.
Regional rivalry weekend.
Sure. I don't know that has the same buzz, but here we are.
Alliteration.
I think baseball should do more of this. I think it clearly, what they were trying to accomplish by getting people excited to watch, I think it worked.
I mean, the numbers obviously tell you that it does. I mean, me personally, I wasn't seeking out some of these rivalry matchups, but if you're talking about in the region, that's why it dominated. Like in Chicago specifically, people were probably glued to that because it was Cubs versus White Sox. I mean, if you're getting Philly versus Pittsburgh, I don't think there's a lot of people expecting those really good matchups, but you're talking about Pennsylvania and who's more dominant, Philly or Pittsburgh.
There is something about the regional ties, though. That matters. Like Chicago, the Cubs versus White Sox, nobody in Chicago actually thinks that's going to be a compelling series baseball-wise, but it does mean something within Chicago,
well, and
right?
Philly and Pittsburgh, I mean, Joey can tell you this story no matter what. Philly and Pittsburgh people hate each other.
Oh, dude, I was just in Pittsburgh, 3 weeks ago now? They hate Philadelphia.
Do you side with Philly or Pittsburgh?
Pittsburgh. I'm a Pittsburgh native at heart. I love that city, man. It's a cool town.
What a softy, am I right, T-Bone?
It feels like a Midwest town that's like relatively East Coast.
We're Philly all the way.
Yeah. We got the Liberty Bell. What's Pittsburgh got?
We got cheesesteaks.
The bridges and the rivers, man.
Yeah, but the one was closed down when you went.
It was
We have a
open
river
this
and
time.
bridges in St. Louis.
But even in like
not the same.
I know people don't think the Cardinals and Royals are a rivalry, but Kansas City versus St. Louis is, and that's where you get the entertainment factor into it.
Somebody said, how much of those ratings came from Mets versus Yankees? The Yankees. This is not about ratings. This is about actual in-person attendance. Yeah. That's what they were trying to boost up with this. And somebody on the text line also says, guys, it helped that it was a regional thing. It helped opposing teams' fans travel. Totally. I think that's part of what makes the Royals versus the Cardinals series work.
Because you always get so many Cardinals people there.
Absolutely. Cardinals fans will go to Kansas City for a weekend. Hey, go enjoy great barbecue. Go watch the Cardinals at stadium where you get to see the highway from your seat. It's an amazing view.
We've got great barbecue here.
And then Royals fans will come to St. Louis, not to the same degree, but they'll come to St. Louis for a weekend here, eat some toasted Rav, go out there, get some gooey butter cake, see the free zoo, and take in a really great sky view as you watch at Busch Stadium.
Better sky view, Kauffman Stadium or Busch Stadium?
Come on, man. Don't make me do this.
Kauffman? Yeah, like looking at that I-70 highway.
Kauffman's a cool stadium. The view of the highway is just really
that big Quick Trip sign.
At least you have cool fountains. And, like, Bigfoot? What's up with Sasquatch being there?
He's Vinny Pasquantino.
Oh.
He does look like Bigfoot.
Yeah, that's his thing. It's Pasquatch is what they call him. All right, coming up in 15 minutes.
I want that guy on the Cardinals.
The Cardinals backed into the best offseason plan they could have asked for. NFL Quick Hitters is next. All right, alongside Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. The NFL is trying to do everything they can to annoy me over the last 24 hours or so, Alex. They decided that it's okay for NFL players to go play flag football in the 2028 Olympics. I think it's absolutely ridiculous. It's one of my old man takes that I have.
That'll
for
go
the day
away
today.
once somebody sprains an ACL trying to get a flag.
I just, like, what are we doing? Do we think that other countries are going to be competitive in this? Like, we need to send NFL players that could potentially get hurt in the 2028 Olympics? We need to do that?
Well,
Okay,
they
cool.
won
Sick.
a gold medal.
Awesome.
They're sick of seeing the NBA players and the NHL players and Major League Baseball guys get the gold medals.
You guys don't have to work that hard for a gold.
I think it's so stupid. But anyway, so that's one side of things.
I wonder who the most competitive country will be in flag football with you. Like, who's second to USA?
Probably Canada. That would be my
That
guess.
would be my guess, but I don't know.
No.
There's some players that are coming over from, like, Europe now. We've seen a couple of guys from, like, UK. I think Australia has sent a few guys over, but that's mostly, like,
rugby's
former
a really
rugby
good.
players.
Yeah, but see, those guys aren't going to be able to let up and just grab a flag.
Yeah, so I don't know. I don't know who it's going to be. I guess we'll find out in
One dude
2028
gets
as they
crushed.
compete with, like, Patrick Mahomes and Justin Jefferson. Like, Josh Allen will probably be, like, the quarterback because why not? Lamar would be an unbelievable flag quarterback. Are you kidding me?
Oh, my God. Yeah, seriously, watching, you don't have to worry about the fumble. You just got to get the flag out.
Yeah, so that would go really well. Anyway, so that's one thing that's annoyed me. The other thing is, T-Bone, what did you say they're doing with this onside kick situation?
Yeah, so what's been proposed, and I haven't seen who proposed this, but it is being proposed, is that they're going to just basically, the receiving team, right now they're 10 yards back. They're going to move them up a yard and make it 9 yards. Yeah. No running starts
Does
still.
science back that 1 yard difference?
Just admit that this doesn't work.
Did you say no
and
running
move
starts
on.
still?
Yeah.
Yeah, you can't get a running start anymore on the onside kick.
That's really probably the big thing that moved this thing to where it is
Correct. It's like 3% or something. Like nobody recovers
6%.
onside. Okay.
gonna make it
Nobody
12.
recovers onside kicks. Nobody.
6% does.
It's not a real play. And at a certain point in time, the NFL is going to have to just acknowledge as much and say, hey, we've got to find something to reinvent what this play is. I think it wasn't the XFL that originally came out with like the 4th and 15 idea as the new onside kick. Just do that. Like, we don't have to pretend as though this thing that we've been doing forever is still working. Sometimes you have to change things. Baseball went to a clock. The sport, that the entire premise of it is, hey, there's no clock on this. Now it is a sport with a clock, and it's 10 times better. It is a more enjoyable product to watch because things had changed, the game had evolved in a certain way, and it became unwatchable, so we had to change it. This specific play within football is unwatchable right now. There's no reason to check it out. 4th and 15, give them one chance to be able to convert, and if they do, they continue the drive. If they don't, the other team takes over wherever they finished. That's it. Boom. You're done. Make it easy. Why is it so hard?
I think we need to get rid of the tush push. I'm sick of that.
What? I like the tush push. Now that's entertaining.
They're probably getting rid of that today.
Aren't the Packers heading that?
They are spearheading that, and apparently, according to reports, Roger Goodell is the one that really wants this out of the game. Like, he does not want to see it anymore. He thinks it's a bad play for football. I saw somebody tweet this out the other day. I'm curious your guys' thoughts on this. They're not going to do this because obviously they just want to get rid of it. How would you feel if they said the only time that you can do the tush push is 4th down? Any other play, can't do it. So, like, 1st and goal from the 1, can't do it. Not until 4th down, and then you get one chance.
Isn't that primarily where it's used now, though?
Yes, but, like, goal line situations, it's used by a lot of teams.
So you can't use it on 1st and goal or something like that?
Can't use it in any other situation other than 4th down. That's the one time where it is allowed.
Because then you have to force the team to either get it in the end zone with 3 plays in when you're in the red zone, and if not, you get the 4th and goal if you get to that point, but by then you might be out of the tush push scenario. So I kind of like that.
If you miss it, you don't get another do-over. Like, the Eagles will do this a lot of the time on 3rd down. If it's 3rd and short, they'll try it. And if they don't get it, they'll do it again on the next play because it's like a 92%
Stop us
play.
twice, yeah.
Yeah, good luck stopping us twice.
I like that.
If you can't do it, if you just allow it on 4th down, then...
See, why can't the NFL be creative and stop being a participation trophy league?
Oh, stop it.
Am I right, BK?
I do think they're going to get rid of it, and I'm fine with it. I don't have a big issue with
I
them.
like that rule better, though, because I like the play. I just don't like it when teams do what you said, where they do it 2 or 3 times to get the 1st down. That's where it's annoying.
Yeah, I wouldn't care either way. I'm okay if you get rid of it. I also don't mind if you decided to do the 4th down thing because I can get part of the reason you want to get rid of it. One, they claim it's a safety hazard, even though there haven't been a ton of injuries associated with
Chris
it.
Jones got hurt in the Super Bowl, but that's okay.
That game was over.
What happened in that Super Bowl?
The other thing too for me is it is so unstoppable, right? Like I do like the idea of you have at least a fighting chance.
That's unstoppable.
Yeah, I was going to say other
because
teams try and they can't pull it off.
I say that is fair. But
the Bills did this a couple of times against the Chiefs. You can go ahead and check. It did not work out quite as well for
tried
them.
it once too, and it didn't work for Dan Campbell.
yeah, I'm okay either way. I don't really care if you wanted to adjust on fourth down, if you just wanted to keep it period, or you wanted to get rid of it. To me, it's not that big of a deal, and I'm okay. I've been a guy that's pushed back on the onside kick thing. You know what? Fine, whatever. Let's do the 4th and 15. It can't be as bad as just watching the team kick it to a guy.
I mean, but a lot of teams aren't going to convert that very often. 4th and 15 is not an easy thing to convert, man. There's a reason why when you see a 4th and 15 in a game, most teams will just punt in that spot. It's a really low percentage. But at least then, if you're the Bills, I've got Josh Allen on the field to try to do this instead of my 4th linebacker that's going out there to try to take somebody's head off while the 5th receiver tries to recover the fumble that is then made possible. So I just think it makes more sense. It's a better football play. It feels more as a fan as though you're watching the guys that should be dictating the results of the game instead of all of your reserves. So I think that's the right way to go about it. But I think that both of these will probably end up getting passed. I think the onside kick will be changed by a yard, and it'll change nothing. And I think you will probably see the implementation of the rejection of, rather, the tush push. I think that's probably going to go away. One other thing that I wanted to get your guys' thoughts on real quick. Joe Tooney, former Chiefs guard, now with the Chicago Bears. He was traded to Chicago earlier today. He signed a 2-year extension, so he'll be with them for the next 3 seasons up in Chicago. We briefly mentioned this yesterday. I can't remember. I think it was you, Alex, that said that you're really high on the Bears going into the season.
No, that was T-Bone.
It was you, T-Bone?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Do you think they have a chance to make it to the playoffs? Do you think that the Bears, because they had a really good offseason, they stabilized that offensive line. They have a new coaching staff in place with Ben Johnson at the helm. Do you think that the Bears are realistically going to be a playoff team this year?
I think they've got a chance. I think they're right there on the fringe to where I think they're either going to be like that 7 seed, so they'll be 9-8, 10-7, somewhere in that range, or they'll just miss out by they'll be 1 game below 500. I think that's kind of their window. I don't agree with I wouldn't say that they are a Super Bowl contender or a team that will get to the playoffs and make noise. I do like what they did this offseason. They brought an adult into the room to be the head coach to try and deal with Caleb Williams and try and at least teach him. I do think he's got great skill set to be a franchise quarterback. He just needed somebody there that's an offensive mind to help him get there. I think they've got a chance. I really do, to make the playoffs.
I think they've got a really tough schedule, man.
Yeah,
a really tough schedule.
I think they miss it. I think they miss it again. I think they improve from 5 wins, but I think they miss it.
They've got the 49ers from the NFC West. They're playing the NFC East, so they've got at Washington and at Philadelphia on their schedule. Those are not easy games. You've got the 6 games within the division, which is just brutal. That is a really difficult division going into the season.
Especially because all 3 made the playoffs last year.
I just don't know, man. AFC North they also have, which all things considered is probably the division that you would want coming out of the AFC side of things. Oof. I think that looks like an 8 or 9 win team that stabilizes. You feel much better about them coming off of the season. And then maybe in 2026, that's when they take that really big step forward. I think a lot of it's really going to come down to their defense. Can their defense be borderline elite this year? If they can, they might be a playoff team. But that's really what it's going to come down to. All right, in 15 minutes, we're going to dive into our BK and Ferrario Rewind. But next, the Cardinals might have backed into their best offseason plan they could have asked for. MLB Network dove into that yesterday. We'll let you hear what they had to say about it next year on BK and Ferrario.
Alex Ferrario with you to talk about my friends out at Classic Air Care. Have been making people comfortable since 1926. And I'm speaking to the people listening now that are in the market for a new HVAC system. If you're looking at buying a new one because your old one has finally hit the fritz, or maybe you just want an upgrade because you don't want to worry about it anymore, well, that's where Classic Air Care is there to help you out. You can actually make this super simple and get a free estimate at the comfort of your own home. You can head on over to their website, classicaircare.com, and and click on the Install HVAC System quote. There's 4 questions that you'll have to answer, and they will give you a price right there on the browser. So you don't have to worry about calling somebody and scheduling it and getting them out there to take a look at the unit. No, you can find out what the price is right there on the internet. And on top of that, they have financing options available for you. I would urge you, though, to have a technician to come out. We did this for our home when we purchased it last year, because the technician over at Classic Air Care, he came out, he looked at our unit and kind of saw some of the areas that were older that needed to be fixed, some of the units that was probably parts that could still be used, and it did save us a little bit of money. So call Classic Air Care. You get the important customer service that you need when it comes to something as important as your HVAC system. Just tell them Alex Ferrario sent you. Classic Air Care, or again online, classicaircare.com.
Tanner Hendrickson here with a Sports Center update brought to you by Saliga Heating and Cooling. Cardinals took down the Tigers last night 11-4. Game 2 of their 3-game set is tonight. 6:45 will be first pitch. Eric Fetty will be on the mound for St. Louis. The Sports Center is brought to you by Saliga Heating and Cooling, a Daikin heating and air conditioning dealer.
Alongside Alex and T-Bone on BK. So, Alex, yesterday I was watching MLB Now over on MLB Network, and they had like a St. Louis panel, basically, right? And Brian Kinney was leading the discussion. Will Leach was up there as well. Bob Costas was up there with him. They were talking about the Cardinals and the surprise that they've been so far this season. And Brian Kinney said something that I think we've kind of briefly discussed in the past, but I wanted to spend some time on it. Take a listen.
On this show, we're very transactional. We like moves, make moves left and right. But isn't there something to, they said, no. We got one relief pitcher, was it $4 million, and that's it. And look what they're doing. Look what the Twins are doing. They weren't aggressive. They didn't win the winter either. Come back with your club.
So he basically was saying, like, hey, they stumbled into what was the right approach during the offseason. Now, this would not have been the right approach in every offseason. The Baltimore Orioles, for example, basically had the same approach as the Cardinals. Hey, we're going cheap. We're going to get just bargain bin deals, and that's going to be the way that we operate. That has gone horribly awry for them to the point where their manager was just fired and their general manager is coming under fire now from the fan base. They've been a disaster. Do you think that the Cardinals, when you look back on it now, had the right approach to the offseason in your mind, Alex? Did they get it right, even if they went about it in a way that maybe, like, at the time they didn't think this was necessarily going to be the result?
100% they got it right. 100% they did. There was no point in going to spend money on this free agent market if this was the path that they were going. Not so much of looking like one of the better teams in the National League, but what they told us, that they were transitioning, they were giving runway to the younger players and finding out what those guys were. I generally ask for people that wanted them to go into the free agent market. When you look at the guys that signed with new teams, who was out there that you wanted the Cardinals to go after? Because a lot of the players that we brought up either re-signed with their team or unrealistically signed big contracts that the Cardinals weren't doing. And all areas that they were looking to sign free agents with, they've got better answers for guys internally than what they would have if they would have gone out to the free agent market. Like a pitcher, for example. We talked a lot about, or at least I talked a lot about Luis Severino. I loved the dude.
Yep.
Well, Luis Severino's been fine, but look at the answer you just got with Matthew Liberatore. Liberatore might realistically be a number 2 or number 3 for you.
And I think some may say to you, yeah, but Alex, you could have had Luis Severino and Matthew Liberatore as a part of your rotation. That just wasn't realistic.
You weren't going to have Matthew Liberatore if you signed Luis Severino.
Correct.
Liberatore was going to the minors or he was going into the bullpen.
100%. He was probably going to be in the bullpen. And they would have just said, you know what, we've got a really nice reliever here. Let's go ahead and go about it this way. And I don't know that Matthew Liberatore was necessarily in their plans when they decided not to sign Luis Severino. I think their plan at the time was, well, we've got Steven Matz, we've got Eric Fetty, we've got Michael McGreevy in a worst-case scenario. We're fine with our rotation. We'll make this work. Liberatore's a really good bullpen arm. We'll stretch him out, see what that looks like. But when or if it fails, he'll go right back to the bullpen. We're good to go for the season. So really, at the time, it felt as though it was Luis Severino versus the other options.
Yeah.
What we didn't know then, that we now know, is that allowed them the opportunity to see more of Liberatore, and now we've seen that is the thing that unlocked his potential. And I think that, to me, is a big part of this. Is like, man, look over the last few years at some of the like roadblocks that the Cardinals implemented themselves for younger players that just didn't allow these young guys to get opportunities. And I think avoiding those landmines this offseason was a really big part of how you've opened up this chance. Like, imagine if they had gone out and just had like a right-handed bat that would have come off of the bench or been their primary DH. How much more difficult that would have made things with Ivan Herrera's playing time or with Alec Burleson's playing time.
That's what I was going to bring. Somebody, we've had like 5 texts coming about why not they didn't bring back Paul Goldschmidt. He's been one of the best players in Major League Baseball. Goldschmidt's here. Contreras is your everyday DH. You're forcing Herrera behind the plate, which maybe he's not successful defensively and it's affecting his offense. You're either not seeing him or you're not seeing Alec Burleson.
If he was here, I don't think Victor Scott opens up the season with a team.
Yeah, I agree with that. Nootbaar's in center field consistently for you.
Donovan's probably in left, Gorman starting at second, because you needed to find that playing time for these guys somehow, some way.
And your defense is taking a step backwards.
A huge step back.
Yeah.
I don't think they're the team that they are right now if you have Paul Goldschmidt on them. I think it was time for both parties to go their separate ways. I think this was good for Goldie to get a fresh start somewhere else. I think it was good for the Cardinals to also honestly get a fresh start. I think some of what had happened over the last few years was things just got stale. They kept trying to do the same thing over and over again, and I didn't necessarily hate all of the moves that they made. At the time, I wasn't necessarily critical of some of them, but you look back on it, you revisit that history, it was just time. It's time to turn the page. Time to give these opportunities in leadership positions, in prominent roles on the roster. Like, all of this was just, it's time for the kids to have their chance. And they were either going to sink or swim. It could have gone the other way, and I still believe it would have been the right call. Like, Newt might have just gotten hurt. And then, well, and gave him his chance. Guess what? Still the same guy. Maybe Brendan Donovan is just the same guy that he's always been, which is a good player, but not this, right? Maybe instead of being a 300 hitter, Ivan Herrera ends up as a 250 guy that can't stay behind the plate, and now you've got a real question on him. Like, these things could have happened. Victor Scott could have just been what he was last year, and he's a soft-hitting outfielder that's never going to make it at the big league level. Mason Wynn, maybe T-Bone's concerns were all justified, and he becomes a 250 hitter that's batting ninth for you, that is just like a nice glove, fine bat, but nothing more. It still, in my opinion, would have been the right call to go this direction. Yep. I think they got it right.
I agree, and I think especially because you have the change that is coming at the president of baseball operations position, I think it was best for you to look at this and say, hey, here's kind of what John Mozeliak and this group of the baseball ops department has been thinking with this roster, but we want you to see what it looks like yourself, Heim. You be the one that makes the decisions and decides, okay, what does it look like? Let's get answers on these guys. So then Heim Bloom has an idea of what he's got going into next year. I probably would have said the same thing if for example, Mo was staying past this year, like say he had signed another contract extension, for example. I think I probably still would have said the same thing, but I don't know if they get to the same spot then. I think then Mo is looking at it saying, well, I just signed a contract extension, so I still want to try and win. And there were some things they could have potentially tried in the offseason to maybe try and bolster the club.
We're getting a lot of people that say basically, like, hey, this would be a better team if Paul Goldschmidt was here.
I disagree.
Maybe if this is the version of Goldie that the Cardinals got, offensively, yeah, they would be better there.
But see, what I don't agree with is I don't think this Paul Goldschmidt's hitting here in St. Louis. He needed to go somewhere, and he needed to not be the guy that was looked at as carrying this team to a World Series.
I agree with you there. I would also say this. They might have been slightly better right now for 2025. They almost certainly would have been worse moving forward. Because Paul Goldschmidt, no matter what, is still 37 years old and has no future here in St. Louis. You needed to find answers on your young players. It was time to find out what you have internally. It was time to find out if Ivan Herrera can be your regular catcher behind the plate. The answer might be no. That's okay, but you got to find that out. It was time to find out on Gorman and on Nootbaar and on Walker. What are these guys? What is their ceiling? What are they capable of? Can we build around them? Are they ancillary pieces, or are they guys that need to be shipped out? We didn't know the answers on these things, and you needed to find out. Goldie's presence in that lineup every day, on the field every day, blocks some of that from being possible. Not all of them. You could have found out some of that, not all of it, because that's another guy that's plopped in for 600 at-bats this year. There's no way to get around it. That's going to be his role for your team. So I think it was 100% the right call. Maybe it would have worked out for this year. It would have been problematic for them moving forward. And
I also don't think if Goldie's here, you're seeing some of these other guys take control of the team the way that they are. Like, look at the conversation we had about Nolan Arenado. Like, Nolan Arenado has taken a step backwards in terms of his role with the team because of his underperformance. And that's allowing guys like Mason Wynn and Victor Scott and Lars Nootbaar to kind of be faces of this team. If Paul Goldschmidt's here, you still have that, hey, well, we're kind of the secondary pieces because you got Goldie and Arenado. I totally disagree that this team would be better with Paul Goldschmidt. I think we are having the same complaints about this team as we were last year if Goldschmidt was here.
I'm glad you mentioned that because there is something to having ownership over the roster.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that's really taken place. Like you look at the guys inside of that clubhouse who has taken over as the leaders of the team, who's taken over as the spokesman of the team. It's a little harder to do that when you have a 37-year-old. And this is not Goldie's fault. It's just the reality.
Yeah.
When you have Paul Goldschmidt as a part of that roster and he's an everyday player, he's the guy, right? You go to him. And now I do think it's a little different. The vibe inside of that clubhouse is that the young players have really taken over ownership roles of the team. So I even think for a guy like Wilson Contreras, I think Contreras has taken over more of an ownership part of this roster because he is a more prominent player within the organization.
I mean, even listen to that comment that Ollie had after the 2-1 win against the Royals. And he said, he said, you guys just got in here, but prior to that, that was probably the most exciting locker room we've had all season. And like, I don't know if that's happening last year. Like, you've got a lot of these younger guys that even after a 2-1 victory just bring a different vibe to the group, and that's important.
Yeah, I understand why they went the direction with Paul Goldschmidt this year, and I don't disagree with it because I do think I didn't think he had this left in him. Even though he had a second half surge, he still had an OPS. It was 799. It was below 800. Okay, so like he wasn't the same guy, but like what he's doing now, if you told me he was going to do this, I would have brought him back because I think the clubhouse stuff is a little overstated. I think the young guys had already kind of started to take over that clubhouse to an extent. Brendan Donovan was the leader before we went into winter warm-up last year. And like, okay, so maybe Herrera doesn't get everyday playing time behind home plate. He's not doing that now. You could have just made him a DH.
That's not what I said. He wouldn't have had the opportunities at DH because Wilson Contreras would have been.
No, I think Contreras is probably your catcher. I think you're going Contreras catcher, Herrera DH.
I think they moved past that.
Either way, you flip those roles. I mean, you can get everybody in the lineup still, and you still don't lose Victor Scott.
Adding another guy to this lineup, you cannot get them everyday opportunities. There's no way to do it.
There is. If you are willing to say one of Contreras or Herrera's are DH, that guy's there. Herrera or Contreras is the catcher.
Who's getting playing time now, then, that you're replacing
Pages is the one that you're replacing. Because Pages is basically their everyday catcher.
For right now, currently,
yes.
Sure. That was not the plan going into the season.
I know, but their plan would have been different if you brought back Goldie. Like, I think if they brought back Goldie, because remember, they talked about it.
But where's Scott or Burleson hitting?
Now that's where Scott to me still in the lineup. I think Scott would have hit his way on
Burleson's not playing.
Burley's the guy that you're not playing, but then you have a bat on the bench.
I just said somebody is getting playing time, or somebody is going to be missing out on playing time, and you said no,
but
which
like,
is
what they're doing right now. Like I'm looking at their lineup today, right? Nobody in their lineup today would have lost playing time except for Pages. Because Burley would be, I mean, right now, Burley is
this game,
a 50-50 of playing time.
We're pretending as if that is always going to be the lineup every day.
In the last 10, we've seen more of Burley than Walker in the last 10 games, which they're giving him more runway over a Walker.
Correct. It just changes and limits your flexibility severely. Because when you have Herrera, Contreras, and Goldie, those guys, you want all three of them in the lineup every single day. There's no way to do it if you have another guy behind the plate. And there will have to be days, probably 1 out of every 3 at a minimum, where you have somebody else behind the plate, even if Herrera was going to be your quote-unquote everyday catcher. And so in those situations, one of Goldie, Herrera, or Contreras is guaranteed to be out of the lineup. They just weren't going to do that this season.
Well, and I know he's not a factor.
I don't know how they could have made that possible.
And I know
I don't think there was a way to make it.
I know he's not a factor now, but at the beginning of the season, Nolan Gorman was still in the plans of giving him playing time. And if Goldschmidt's there, well, then how's he getting that playing time? Again, he's not a factor now, but at the beginning of the season, you couldn't just say, well, Gorman's not a factor to us because we brought back Paul Goldschmidt.
I think by how quickly they abandoned that, I think it showed they were never.
Maybe.
They weren't ever 100% convinced of doing that plan.
My bigger point is on Herrera. Herrera had to be a priority this offseason. He had to be. And if you went down this path, he was not getting everyday at-bats because they were not going to put him into the lineup over Contreras and Goldie. Just wasn't happening. We know how this team operates with the veterans. Like, it took them until now to move Arenado down in the lineup. You think that they were going to be playing Herrera over Contreras or Goldie? No chance. So he was the one that was going to end up losing out on some of this playing time. All right, coming up next, we'll hit the rewind here on BK and Ferrario. Hey, if you missed anything from today's show, be sure to check out the podcast page, 101ESPN.com, and the free 101 ESPN app is where you go to find it. That's all sponsored by
Schaefer Door Company.
That 101 ESPN app is free to download, super easy to use, and it is sponsored by Dobbs Tire and Auto Centers. We had a great conversation earlier today with Jeremy Rutherford. We talked about why David Schoenfeld of ESPN.com says the Cardinals are a bit of a fluke. He's not buying it just yet. We talked about some of the numbers that led to his conclusion. Alex, the Cardinals, though, did win again last night. They looked fantastic against the team that in a lot of power rankings right now are right up at the top in the Detroit Tigers. Cardinals won that game 11-4. Your biggest takeaway from last night's win was what?
Sonny Gray and the pitching. That was a matchup that I was watching the pitching staff, specifically Sonny Gray, because he has had his struggles. He hasn't looked like the bona fide number one that he is slotted to be this season, but against Detroit, who has been a better slugging team and a better OPS team than the Cardinals offensively, Sonny Gray just went out there and dealt. And they continue to find ways to get out of jams, whether it's Lars Nootbaar's play in the corner of left field out of play where he jumps up and steals the ball to get the out, or it's Sonny Gray going through after a double to get big 2 strikeouts to end the inning. The Cardinals just find ways to do it. But for me, with 10 strikeouts of Sonny Gray, 6 innings, it was another really good start from a starting pitching that I've just doubted this season.
And T-Bone, I'm curious your thoughts on this, but for me, it was their ability to once again win a game in a big fashion. They won by 5 or more runs. It's the 13th time that they have done that so far this season. At this point last year, they had 2 wins by 5 or more runs. They were a team that won either really, really close, slim margins, or they found a way to lose. They're doing that. They're blowing these games wide open in 2025, and it's allowing them to utilize the bullpen in a better way. It's keeping guys a little bit fresher. That, to me, is my biggest takeaway from last night. T-Bone, what was it for you?
Well, mine was the offense. I mean, look, Sonny Gray was excellent, 10 strikeouts, but he's got that kind of stuff. It was encouraging to see it against one of the best teams. I don't know what to say about the offense anymore. I mean, everybody's hitting except for Arenado, but you don't even really notice it, right? Think of years past. If Arenado went through it's really been a month struggle. We would be talking about the sky was falling, they're going to fall apart, they might as well trade everything, and that's not the case anymore. And part of that is, Arenado's not a cleanup hitter anymore, as we discussed earlier in the show. But it also goes to show that there is such a supporting cast around them that when guys struggle, you don't really notice it. So I've just been really impressed by their offense. I mean, it was quiet under the radar. Hey, Donovan had 3 hits again last night. Oh, by the way, that Herrera guy had another 2 hits and 2 RBIs. You don't even notice it because everybody's hitting right now. It's really impressive what their offense has been.
Cardinals back in action this evening. It is Tarek Skubal on the mound for the Detroit Tigers. He's a legit ace in every sense of the word. If ever there was a game where this is the game to slug, it is tonight. You're not going to be able to string together very many hits against Skubal. Myself, T-Bone, we'll both be out there at the ballpark this evening. So expect a really strange game. For Alex Ferrario and Tanner Hendrickson, I'm Brandon Kiley. We'll talk to you guys tomorrow at 11 a.m. The Fast Lane is coming up next here on 101 ESPN.